to go through withdrawal. Plus our coach. He's a senior.
I did. I had a meeting over at the school board. Sure. Amazing finish, 2 3-point shots.
Your 3-point shot was incredible. All your numbers, Archie getting rid of the ball and trying to get that Mike.
Good play.
Yeah, because he was double teamed. Yep. But he didn't use it like a sub.
But man, now she's so pro.
Oh yeah.
He even admitted it.
Yeah.
He was.
That guy's
I didn't see it at the beginning.
That would be hard. Yeah, wouldn't be easy. Okay. All right, just thought I'd ask. I haven't seen him in a while, and I do. I think this was the. I saw you sent that letter to the Italian people. No response. No, was that? Yeah.
First of all, Casey didn't say what he said. I didn't.
Good evening, everyone. Would you please join us in a salute to the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2016 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2015, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams? Here. Mr. Brownlee?
Here.
Mrs. Larrier? Mr. Lembrick?
Here. Good night, Cece.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has a discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire this governing body to comply with the provision of this act, at the same time conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April 5th meeting. This evening, we have 3 proclamations that will start us off. After that, we'll have our first public comment period, if anyone would like to address the Township Committee. Then we'll have our Board of Health meeting, which is a monthly meeting. We have 2 ordinances tonight. One is on final passage, and that is to increase the appropriation limit and establish a cap bank. That has to do with our budget. And the second is introduction of a new ordinance, and that is our capital improvement, our capital budget for the year. We have 6 discussion items. One is an outdoor cafe, discussing the dining requirement of landlord approval. 2 is revisions to the redevelopment area number 2. 3 is amending application for the CCU with regard to corporations, limited liability corporations, and partnerships. 4 is a resolution in support of Bill A 3420, Assembly members McKeon and JC, and this has to do with education funding. 5th is potential changes to and/or increased enforcement of leaf blower regulations. And 6th is consideration of banning pesticides on lawns. We'll then go to our consent agenda. We have items there where we'll be approving snow plowing contracts for 2016-17, hopefully not at this point any longer. We'll be appointing representatives to our community development for the year 2016. We'll be purchasing a police car, extending the contract for the pool concessionaire, approving a contract for mowing large areas in the township, We'll be approving bills and claims and approving minutes. Then we'll have our second public comment period. We'll have reports from departments, administrative reports, and then reports from elected officials. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Adams if she would do the proclamation on the Parliamentary Law Month. I think we're going to have Ms. Barbaro come up.
When lawyers do things like this. Parliamentary Law Month Proclamation, April 2016. Whereas since April is the birth month of Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the first American Manual of Parliamentary Procedure in 1801, it is an appropriate time to honor him and celebrate the use of parliamentary procedure. Whereas it is fitting to honor Henry Martin Robert, author of the Pocket Manual for Rules of Order for Deliberative Assemblies, also known as Robert's Rules of Order. And whereas Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, is the most widely recognized and used parliamentary authority in public and private organizations. And whereas it is timely to reflect on the importance of parliamentary procedure in meetings in providing for civil discourse, protecting individual rights, ensuring fairness, and in maintaining order. And whereas the National Association of Parliamentarians has, by adoption of a standing rule, designated the month of April as Parliamentary Law Month. And whereas the National Association of Parliamentarians is a professional society dedicated to educating leaders throughout the world in effective meeting management through the use of parliamentary procedure. And whereas the vision of the National Association of Parliamentarians is to provide parliamentary leadership to the world. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of Victor DeLuca, Mayor of Township of Maplewood, do hereby declare April 2016 as Parliamentary Law Month in the Township of Maplewood. That's for you. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you so very much. It is my pleasure to be able to accept this, and I want to let you know that I started studying parliamentary procedure when I was afraid I was losing my marbles, and I figured if I could pass the test, maybe I just wasn't focusing enough. That was 30 years ago, and I figured I'm doing pretty well since, and I focus. There are 2 registered parliamentarians in Maplewood. We meet monthly at the Cranford Library with the Cranford Unit of Parliamentarians. I'm an officer there, as well as an officer in the New Jersey State Association. There are available to all of us classes in parliamentary procedures, so you too can learn how to run efficient meetings that are balanced and that where everyone knows the rules. There will be a class given by myself and the president of my unit at the South Orange Maplewood Adult School in May, and our Cranford meeting is open to anyone who is interested in attending. So if you would like to come and see what we do and how we do it, and that it's not daunting, please get in touch with me, and the clerk will know how to get in touch with me. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Lembrecht is going to do Autism Awareness Month. Don't you?
It's my pleasure to read the proclamation for Autism Awareness Month 2016. Whereas autism spectrum disorder is now diagnosed in 1 in every 68 births and almost 1 in 54 boys, making it the fastest growing developmental disability in the United States. And whereas more than 3.5 million Americans live with an autism spectrum disorder, and whereas 1 in 49 children in New Jersey are on the autism spectrum, and whereas autism is treatable, studies show that early diagnosis and intervention lead to significantly improved outcomes. And whereas we hope that this time period and any commemorations associated with it will promote increased efforts of awareness, understanding, acceptance, and education of parents, professionals, and the general public about autism and its effects. Now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of Victor DeLuca, Mayor of the Township of Maplewood, we do hereby proclaim April 2016 as Autism Awareness Month in the Township of Maplewood and urge all residents to participate in autism awareness activities in order to become better educated on the subject of autism spectrum disorders.
Two seconds. I want to once again, thank the Township Committee so much for your support, which I really feel reflects the support and care and concern of all the citizens of Maplewood. And thank you. We miss our good friends, Ms. Leventhal and Mr. Ryan, who were always great supporters of ours, and we're thrilled to have Ms. Adams and Mr. Lembert, excuse me, join the team. And thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here for the Family Meal Week proclamation? Okay, I'm going to just abbreviate the proclamation. Whereas the Alcohol Drug Abuse Prevention Team, better known as ADAPT, along with other local organizations in conjunction with the Maplewood Municipal Alliance, are celebrating Family Meal Week from April 17th to 23rd. And whereas these organizations are working to decrease substance abuse in the Township of Maplewood by encouraging families to sit down and eat a meal together, which is shown to develop good habits and decrease the opportunity for substance use among youth. Now therefore, I, Victor DeLuca, Mayor of the Township of Maplewood, join ADAPT and the Maplewood Municipal Alliance and do hereby proclaim the week of April 17th through 23rd, 2016 as Family Meal Week in the Township of Maplewood. In addition, I call upon our local residents to visit participating restaurants with their family to bond and have meaningful conversations to prevent substance use. Through these efforts, we can prevent substance use and keep our community healthy and safe. Okay. Next up, and if we could get the, thank you, Mr. Desiderio. We're going to have our first public comment period. If there's anyone who would like to address the township, we ask you to come up, give us your name and address, and share what you'd like with us.
Hello, my name's Carrie Gordon. I live at 34 Girard Place in Maplewood, New Jersey. And I wanted to say I support a complete ban of gas-powered leaf blowers from June to September. The current rule of 65 decibels during these months is not followed or sufficiently enforced. A normal conversation at 3 feet apart is 65 decibels. A vacuum is 70 decibels. Today I saw 3 guys blowing around dust and dirt. This is the standard practice. The 2-stroke engines of gas-powered engines emits carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, and hydrocarbons. We all know the detrimental effects of carbon monoxide, but hydrocarbons are carcinogenic and nitrous oxide causes acid rain. A leaf blower running for 1 hour emits as many hydrocarbons and pollutants into the atmosphere as a car driven at 55 miles per hour for 110 miles. The blowers also propel clouds of dust, dirt, and dangerous contaminants such as volatile compounds, mold, fungus, pollen, pesticides, fertilizers, and feces. Many of the lawn service companies operating in Maplewood are not registered with the town. And many of the workers operating these machines do not wear proper hearing or breathing protection. I also support a ban on chemical pesticides and fertilizers that are used for cosmetic purposes, as many of these chemicals are carcinogenic and get washed into drinking water supplies. I'm submitting a model pesticide ordinance, and I just want to say the Maplewood Green Team Re-Yard Initiative has a sustainable lawn demonstration at the Tuscan School in April. They're using microclover, and you can follow the progress at www.reyard.org/greenergrass/.
Thank
You know
you.
what the date is in April?
It's all of April. If you go
Oh, all
on the
of
website, you can follow the progress. They're using
Oh, I see.
aeration and microclover, and it's
Great.
chemical free. Should I submit this over
Yeah,
here?
what was the dates of that you're looking for the ban from when to when?
June to September.
Basically, between spring clean out and break out.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee?
My name is Tom Spurrell. I've been a Maplewood resident for 8 years and currently reside at 123 Baker Street. I come to speak tonight regarding an incident that took place on March 23rd. At approximately 3:30, a school bus arrived on the corner of Ridgewood Road and Ridgewood Terrace with an 8-year-old boy who was ill and started to have a seizure. The mother laid the child on the ground and 911 was called immediately, and it was described with the address and the situation. We were told that help was on the way. The boy laid on the ground and continued to seize as time continued to pass. No help arrived, so additional calls were placed to 911. After 10 minutes, a police officer arrived on the scene who administered oxygen, but the seizures continued. The police officer also radioed for help, but that help went unanswered. At one point, the police officer encouraged the parents on the scene to also call 911 again. Another 10 minutes passed with no ambulance, no fire truck, no support from a neighboring town. It was not until 22 minutes after the initial call that a paramedic arrived from Newark. During this 22-minute period of concern, parents and child stood by shocked as the town or the neighboring town failed to provide basic emergency services. On March 23rd, I believe this town could have done a better job. When you call for emergency services, you deserve to have a fast response, and I don't believe 22 minutes is sufficient. Calls to question basic questions. Where was the Maplewood EMT? I assume they were dispatched on another call, and if that's true, was the proper protocol followed to notify neighboring towns? If so, where was the neighboring town? If the neighboring town was off on another call, was Maplewood made aware of that fact? That if no EMTs were available in Maplewood or neighboring towns, why was not a fire truck dispatched? 22 minutes with no EMT, no neighboring town EMT, and no fire truck. Per the town's own website, all firefighters are trained in CPR, semi-automatic defibrillation, and emergency first aid. Also, the town states it automatically sends an engine to stabilize the patient until an ambulance is available. I've seen this township committee spend countless hours debating many topics, including many topics which are much less important in my opinion. Permissibility of chicken coops in backyards, turf fields versus grass fields. These are all important in their own way, but neither of them are matters of life and death. So I request that the Committee on Public Safety spend meaningful time to examine what happened to help mitigate the risk of something like this happening again. It's too easy just to call this an anomaly and to rely on the strength of the typical response time. It's too easy to blame the 911 operator that said they should have done something different. The bottom line is a police officer was on the scene after 10 minutes calling for help, and still no Maplewood fire truck arrived. I do have great respect for the police and firemen. I'm the grandson of an NYPD detective and a veteran. My brother's also a police officer, so I know all too well the sacrifice that first responders make. However, this incident requires some attention, and I'll ask you to consider that 99% of the time, if an excellent job is done, which I believe it is, it's the 1% where the system fails that sometimes the residents feel. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Scarell, thank you for bringing this up. I assume there's some other people that want to talk about this, so why don't we have everyone and then we can respond.
Mayor DeLuca, Township Committee members, thank you for your time and your service. My name is Stephanie Barber. I live at 24 Lenox Place, and I was at the bus stop on that day. As Tom Spurrell indicated, the bus pulled up around 3:31, and for all those moms and parents who were there, we thought it was a normal day until we saw the little boy who was in need of dire medical attention. And we called 911 immediately. Several people called 911. There were at least 4 calls that I was aware of. They placed the boy on the shoulder of Ridgewood, and as Tom indicated, we waited for the police to arrive and the ambulance to arrive. We were told that an ambulance was on its way. The police did arrive, I would say, within 8 to 10 minutes, and they did begin to administer oxygen. About 10 minutes into it, there was quite a state of panic. The boy was still convulsing. There was still no medical attention. So we solicited help of a neighbor who happened to be an ER doctor. He actually ran from a few blocks over and reached the boy who was in assistance far ahead of the ambulance. And then I would say when the ambulance did arrive, the principal and also the school nurse had also arrived on that scene. They drove from Marshall School to the scene and were there as well. So I think some of the questions that I have are very similar. Clearly what happened? Why did it take so long? Is there emergency protocol from the school buses so that the buses can notify 911? What happened? And why weren't we, when we called back to 911, they kept saying the ambulance is on its way. No one was saying what we should do. No one was saying when it would arrive. It was all very ambiguous. And I think those of us who were on the scene kept feeling like it's going to show up anytime. I actually had the child who was having the medical event. I had his brother, and I kept saying, help is on the way. But it was taking a very, very, very long time to reach us. And I think so the big question is, why did the police arrive so quickly? Why did it take the EMT so long? It was a very, very long time. The next day, I had the opportunity I called the fire department myself. Just as a parent, I was concerned and wanted to know what I could have done better. What should I have done? And I talked to a dispatcher who indicated a couple of things. They said that many of us, all of us, had called from our cell phones because we were on the street and that's what we had. They said perhaps we would have gotten a faster response if someone had called from a landline. So that is an issue that I would put forth to the township for consideration. And then the second piece as well was they said it had we called the fire department directly, which I have to be honest, in a medical event was not something that I had truly considered. So if that is something that the public needs to be aware of, again, I think that that's something that we should know. In a bizarre twist of events, a few days later, I happened to have occasion to call the fire department again. There was a car on Easter Sunday as I was cooking my Easter dinner that was driving up Lenox Place, and it caught on fire. And I called from a landline, having just had this conversation, and there was a very, thankfully, prompt response, and all was well. But as far as the child is concerned, it was a very dramatic event for all of us who were there. There were a lot of parents who were present, and we certainly have a lot of questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to discuss this item?
I am Kyu-Suk Kim, and I'm running Maple Road Cleaners at 97 Baker Street, Maple Road. This is a letter that I just sent this afternoon to Mr. Forjon. I hope I'm at the right place.
Oh, yeah, anytime.
There are 3 other dry cleaners in town, Linda's, Fellas, and the Gleason Cleaners. And we heard last weekend, actually, that you are planning to rent a space in your new building to dry cleaners. We are surprised, as our mayor has told us for a long time that the new building was good and would benefit our village. In our case, dry cleaners, another dry cleaners will likely result in a significant loss of business and the possibility of our business closing. I'm told that it's gonna be drop-off store. Drop-off cleaners mean that doing job for somebody out of this town. So we don't understand how this helps the town and our business. My business has been how we support our families and also allow us to live in Maple Road, which we love. This business is my lifelong sweat and tears result. What I simply ask to the building owner is that please let us know if you are really planning to having a dry cleaner in your new building. If so, please talk to us so we could understand how bad this move will be for us and our families. This evening when I came into this building, honestly, I didn't really realize that I'm at the right place to speak how desperate I am. And I also saw a boy. I can tell he's autistic because I have a 12-year autistic boy. This year, I just started to teach my boy if he could be independent when I'm gone. I'm 54 years old and he's 12. So I started to teach him how to assort, how to assemble, how to set things by numbers. My boy is a very high functioning. He can do it. Little by little, he can do it. But when I when I'm told that there's going to be another drop-off store in the new building, that's very convenient to the train station. This dry cleaning business has not been going up business, it's coming down business. And in addition to that, when I'm seeing a good chance for my son to be independent by teaching him how to, he may not be able to run, but who knows? When he was 3 years old, he didn't even speak. Mom, I was hiding myself for my son learn to calling mom when he needed me. It took long, but now he speaks a lot. He speaks too much. I have to stop, please, don't. Now he doesn't even know why he has to sort by numbers. He's very good at with numbers. Even he become turning 1 year old, he could pair the numbers, and the teacher at school didn't believe. But as a mom, I knew that he can tell the numbers. His memory is powerful. Am I speaking too long? I have got really great memory because of my short language. I memorize my customer by names and by phone numbers. Many of my customers come to me and say, how you can memorize? One of my neighbors was coming to me, you should go on to television show. But for me, this business is, I poured everything into business. I used to be a teacher in Korea. Anyhow, I came into the United States. I became a citizen. I've got this boy. I have to support my family. This business is my last resort to say, without this, I don't know how I can survive in this country. And my son has to be independent eventually. And he can do it. So, Mr. Forgione, please think of this dry cleaning business addition in your building. Drop-off store doesn't do the job here. It's dropping off and we cannot tell where the business goes. It's not at least in this town. But I have been in this business since I moved into New Jersey, all my life long. I know I might be saying, only out of my interest. I know I'm talking so selfish, but I need this business. I need to have got this business survive. Linda and I, we are in neighborhood. We are doing very cooperatively, very friendly. They do their business on their own. I do my business on my own. We are friendly each other. And one more business in village. Oh, I might end up closing. I have got 10 more years to go with this new lease. I just got renewed. Please take into consideration adding one more dry cleaners in the new building.
Okay.
That's all I ask.
Thank you.
you.
Anyone, we have to allow this to be open. So if anyone else wants to address the Township Committee on any subject, and then we can come back to the issue there. So, Dr. Munch.
Mayor DeLuca, and this is addressed actually to Mayor DeLuca, the Township Committee, John James, and Mr. Forgione. I've been asked on behalf.
Could you say who you are?
I am Dr. Kevin Mensch. I live at 575 Prospect Street for the last 57 years, and I have a business for the last 17 years in Maplewood Avenue. I've been asked by the Maplewood Village merchants today to speak on their behalf. List of the merchants who have signed this petition already. And it goes, this past week through local media, we learned the identity of the likely tenants of the Post House development. In an interview with the Village Green, Mr. Forgione shared that the prospective tenants are a Starbucks, a drop-off dry cleaners, a bank, a farm-to-table restaurant, and a clothing store. Forgione noted that the leases had not yet been signed. Tenant selection at this site has been of community interest from the time that the township first proposed this construction in 2012. During this past year, we understood that the identifying the potential retail tenants was a sensitive subject for Mr. Forgione. Now that this phase is past and he has tenants, we're ready for a collaborative discussion as to the tenants and the specific businesses that Mr. Forgione's goals would make, that may make a significant or positive contribution to the overall village. Proposed tenants compete directly with some of our existing businesses, as just mentioned, but the matter of new competition is not of our primary concern. We already have accepted to have fair competition. Our concern is based more on the ways in which the choices can be complementary to the village economy overall and not unduly driven by the project's desired financial gains, or the fact that the project is the recipient of tax and other incentives that are not available to the local landlords or merchants. To our knowledge, the Township Council has never approved tax incentives or discounts to our landlords that could have been used for improvements to their buildings or to help our businesses be more competitive. Additionally, the longer-term concern is that these businesses may not support the outcomes for the village that you each have publicly shared. You asked us to believe each of you while the details of the project were developed over the past years. We are now ready to discuss the ways in which this project will help the community overall. Mayor DeLuca, you were quoted as saying you wanted any of the tenants to be solid businesses and to add value to the shopping and dining experience of the Maplewood Village. Mr. Forgione had offered just this week, I'm going to be very selective about the tenants, what tenants are selected for the building. It has to be added value to the town. Mr. James, as a representative of Maplewood Village Alliance, shared in his written materials that the group's efforts are driven by creating favorable environments for our local businesses. We hope that you agree that the collective belief and confidence of the local village business community is critical to the project's success. As business people, we live by numbers each day. We now ask you that you do the same in engaging a conversation on the benefits for the proposed selection that Mr. Forgione has outlined. Therefore, we are writing to request that before the merchant leases are finalized and signed for the post house, that all you participate in an open meeting with the village merchants, the landlords, and interested village stakeholders to discuss the share of information and analysis regarding the project's benefits to the existing merchants and to the village overall. We ask that for your response to our request by Thursday, April 8th. We suggest a venue like the Woodlands or the Maplewood Library Meeting Room, which could be conducive for a productive discussion. Thank you in advance for your collective success. Signed, the Maplewood Village Merchants. A copy for Liz, as well as the merchants that have signed to date, and there are other pending merchants that will sign. They just have not signed to date.
You give it to our clerk. Great, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? There'll be another public comment period later in the meeting. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close the public comment period now. I want to go back to the incident at Ridgewood Terrace in Ridgewood. First, it was a horrible situation. And I don't think we could give you a whole lot of information that we have about it because we've looked at that, we've heard the tapes and we've gotten reports from the police and the fire. I think what we need to do is make sure it never happens again. I would just say one thing about what the dispatcher said to you, Ms. Barber. I don't think that that's necessarily what the police would say to you. I think in an emergency, they want you to call 911, not to call other departments or anything like that. Right, Captain? Yes, sir. So they want you to call 911. And the issue with the cell phone is it's just a big issue, but you know, whoever gets that call understands where the situation is and routes that call properly. You're right, Mr. Sproul. This is a situation where our ambulance at the fire department was out. Our backup is the South Orange Rescue Squad, and I believe they were out. Okay, they were not available at the time. This was a daytime, excuse me. Daytime, they generally don't run, they run at night. So daytime, they have a paid fire department, I'm sorry, a paid ambulance service. And I don't know what the situation was there, but in any event, I think you've identified a problem or a situation that we have to look into and solve. Because you're right, we do have trained personnel at the fire department. And there's certain protocols that happen. We do have backups with other towns. We use a system called REMS, and those calls go there, and they know who's out and who's next in line. So that's the way it works. And you know, this could have just been a situation where all those ambulances were out at one time. But then, if we have to figure out what's our backup at that point. I think that's on us, and that's something we have to figure out, because we do have personnel sitting in the firehouse. If REMS knows that our ambulance is out, we have to figure out a way to make sure that our firefighters know if something happens in town so that they can fill in if necessary. Because you're right, we could have sent a truck up there with some personnel that were trained, but there was never a call, as I understand it, there was never a call to our fire department, because the REMS people have it blocked out as our ambulance is out on the road. So we have to fix that. So we have our chief here, our captain, and I don't know if you want to respond anymore. I mean, basically, we are committed to doing just what you said, talking about it at our public safety meeting, trying to figure out what happened, what were the gaps, what can we do to fill those in so they don't happen again. Is that fair? Just say who you are, Chief, please. Just say who you are.
Chief Michael Dingelstead from Maplewood Fire Department. As you mentioned, Mayor, we did have an opportunity to review the tapes that were from Central Dispatch at police headquarters, and conversations that went back and forth between police headquarters and REMS. And we reviewed those tapes. In reviewing the whole incident, as I mentioned in the response to Mr. Lemberg in the Township Committee yesterday, it's an unfortunate series of events where a backup ambulance were not available. It's a difficult situation because we had an 8-year-old boy that was having a medical emergency, he was having a seizure. In reviewing the protocols, the dispatchers followed the proper steps to address the emergency. The initial caller, from the review, the only information that they were able to obtain was that there was a boy having a seizure. There was no backup information on it. REMS began the dispatch process. They knew our ambulance was already on assignment. Next step was to page out for South Orange Rescue. They do that 2 times, 2 minutes apart, before they move on to Monarch after that. In the meantime, there were calls going back and forth. There was a call that was followed up by, I don't know who the callers were. that was able to, the caller was able to provide additional information to the REMS dispatcher regarding the condition of the boy and any previous medical conditions or underlying factors that the parents were aware of. And based on that, the caller was given instructions on what to do. I'm not sure how that played out on the scene. They also dispatched at that time, they reached out for an ALS ambulance, which was a paramedic unit, advanced life support. And at that time, they continued to try to have an ambulance to respond. South Orange wasn't available. They reached out to Monarch. Monarch originally told them they had a unit assigned. They typically don't tell the dispatchers where the ambulances are coming from. And that was part of the reason why they were unable to give an ETA, an estimated time of arrival, to the callers that were calling in. They also, when they found out that there was no ambulance available, they moved forward and when Monarch canceled, Monarch reassigned their ambulance in this process that was responding to Maplewood. They turned and they dispatched an ambulance from University Hospital, which was the next step in the process. The reason that the fire department wasn't dispatched in the process, and there's a procedure for that, as the gentleman noted, that we do respond to life-threatening emergencies with an engine or a ladder truck at the time. The medical cards that the dispatchers use for coding, even if a call gets rated as an advanced life support, paramedics are responding, does not necessarily meet the criteria for a life-threatening emergency. As difficult as it is to accept that when there's a youngster on the sidewalk, they followed the proper procedure on that. And the time frame was from the initial phone call that went to police headquarters. I think Captain Cummins can confirm that it was from the dispatch, from the initial phone call to the time the ambulance arrived on the scene was 19 minutes.
Chief, I think you're right. I think they followed the proper procedure. I think what we need to do is have a conversation about the proper procedure because, there was also information that the police were there on the scene. And so that was there earlier than 19 minutes. So I think we just have to have an in-house conversation to try to figure out how not to have this happen again. I mean, I don't think anybody's trying to assign any blame. I think there was something happened. And luckily the child is okay. But we got to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if it's not so much looking backwards at the procedure and we want to make sure everything was done properly, but what did we learn from this experience so that we could modify the procedure or figure out something else so that it doesn't happen again? Because look, we don't have as many resources backup as we used to. It's around the whole place. There's not a lot of ambulances out there anymore. So we've got to figure out how best not to let this happen again.
I'm going to sit down and have a meeting with my officers, and we're going to review the procedures that are specific to the emergency dispatch and make, if there are appropriate changes that we can make to prevent that step that we're going to take.
Great.
To correct the situation.
And I think we'll stick this on the agenda.
Absolutely.
For public safety. Okay, thank you very much. You okay, Captain? No. Unless anybody has any questions. Do you have any questions? Okay. If you can come up to the mic just so, because this gets recorded and,
I'm Stephanie Bauer. I just have one follow-up question. If we had been called from a landline, would that have expedited the response time? No, it would not have changed the situation at all.
The way the 911.
Captain, can you go up to the mic and talk?
And is there a number that we're supposed to call in town or just 911?
Captain Joshua Cummins, Maplewood Police Department. To answer this young lady's question is, whether you call from a landline or a cell phone, it doesn't matter. The call will make it its way to the proper location. A landline will come directly to us because it is a landline. A cell phone, as long as it's in town, I want to say 95% of the time, will hit Maplewood. We are a PSAP, which is a point of emergency call point. Once, depending on the traffic involved with the cell phones, it may hit a tower and go to another location. They'll tell you, they're going to ask you 911, where is your emergency? And you're going to say Maplewood, New Jersey. They will automatically transfer you to us, and then we will take the call and transfer it, if it's EMS or fire, to the appropriate location. At the same time, we will immediately dispatch a police officer to that location for initial assistance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just on the other request about a meeting with the merchants, we'll meet, you would ask for a response by April 8th. There's two other parties that I can't speak for, the Alliance and Mr. Forgione, so I'd ask you to give us to the 11th, Monday, so I could reach out to them and see. Mr. Forgione's a private individual, so we'll get back to you by the 11th, let's say noon by the 11th. Could you come up if you're going to respond?
Speaking to them, actually, they can't hear you when you're talking back there.
Kevin Mensch, 575 Prospect Street. Sorry, I don't do this regularly. I guess what I don't know is where if that might affect the signing of the lease. That's the only thing I could think. I think their purpose in meeting on the 8th was trying to make sure that they intervened before the leases were signed. So if he could be notified right away to delay any action on his part until that meeting, as opposed to getting to the meeting and find out, oh, I signed him on the 9th.
Right. I don't know his timetable, but have you sent that to him yet? The letter?
I'm just speaking for them.
Okay.
And
So we have the letter. We'll get it to him tomorrow.
Okay.
And
Wonderful.
go from there.
Thank you for your
Okay.
time.
And we're going to be talking about the leaf blower and the pesticide use a little later. Okay? All right, we're going to move on now to the monthly Board of Health meeting. And given that Mrs. Larrier is not here, I am going to run that meeting. Not as well as she will do it, but I should just run. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2016 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2015, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, here, sorry.
Mrs. Brownlee?
Here.
Mrs. Larrier? Mr. Lembrick?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in a formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, except as otherwise described by law, does limit the public to the observations and discussions of the Board of Health at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes of March 1st?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Mr. Rowe?
Lowest here.
Yes, see who can go low.
Yes.
I want to report that at the end of March, the Essex County executive, their administrator, their public works director, the mosquito control person, met with township health officers and emergency personnel and some hospital personnel to discuss mosquito control in the light of the danger from Zika virus. And I just want to report that they seem very prepared to do whatever it was they needed to do in terms of mosquito control. So I'm very pleased. And so we'll be working cooperatively with the county, in this particular, the mosquito control, to control mosquitoes as best we can this summer. And we'll be doing a lot of public education on getting rid of stagnant water sources. I want to give you a sign. We just did this today, actually. We started distributing this to It went to Extra Supermarket, and we wanted to put it in the Bank of America, but they don't allow signs. It's in Creole. And because I know this has been a topic that's come up many times, and this sign says, we are Maplewood Township. We have many programs for the Haitian community that lives in Maplewood. For further information, call 973-762-8120. So hoping this will attract attention. When our nurse went to Extra Supermarket, they were very glad to have this, and they also asked for one in Spanish.
Yes.
So we'll be providing that too.
We have our next talk to the Township Committee at the Jacoby Street Bank, so these will come in handy.
Great. So
that's the 16th, so.
Okay, we'll have it ready.
You give us 25 or so.
Great. We've been working with Ms. DePalma on the senior grant, helping to get out a survey in particular, and so I just want to, anyone who's 60 and over, please fill out a survey. This is part of the grant application and an important part. On April 15th, the health department and the library are going to have St. Barnabas speak at the library at 7 p.m. and the topic is caregiver overload. So, and there's lots of people in the sandwich generation, which I find myself in, and sometimes I feel overloaded by trying to care for old people and young people, in addition to my own family. And then I saw late this afternoon that the governor had approved the $10 million fund for lead paint poisoning abatement. So I thank all the groups that lobbied to have that passed. But it's an important fund, and I think we'll be able to use some of that right here at Maplewood.
Great.
That's my report.
I ran into someone from St. Barnabas who said that they really enjoy working with you and your team. So just want to let you know. She's in the community affairs.
We probably know her.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, it's been working really great so far. I think as part of Obamacare, they're required to do more community outreach. So we're taking advantage of everything they're offering, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay, great. Any questions for Mr. Rowe?
Did not have a Furry Hearts.
I'm sorry I didn't put that in my report. It was just
That's okay.
a brief report from them. They have one more feral cat colony. It's got 4 cats, and they're all spayed and neutered. Yeah.
And we had that one instance where there was a colony listed, but it wasn't, it was on that sheet.
That's right.
Are you following up on that address? Because I've gotten complaints about that.
Yes, I've spoken with the residents several times.
Okay.
And
And the seniors, you gave a senior a violation notice for feeding cats over at
the senior building, yes.
Yeah.
I
explained to her she can't be doing it.
If you go over, there's like a dozen cats running around the building, and the elderly women are throwing food out the windows for the cats. The tough
colony count, even though it's
No.
not under.
Good thing we don't
it's
have
a colony in
seagulls.
Maplewood. It's not under the auspices of Furry Hearts.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to address the Board of Health? Seeing no one, we will close that and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have an ordinance on final.
Mr. Mayor, ordinance on final passage, item number 10. Ordinance number 2807-16, exceed municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank pursuant to NJSA 48-4-45.14.
Not yet. This ordinance has been passed, copies published on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance, which deals with the budget appropriation limits and a cap bank? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Mr. Brownlee?
Yes, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. We have an ordinance on introduction.
Mr. Mayor, we do. Item 11, introduction of new ordinance, ordinance 2808-16, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating the aggregate amount of $3,720,708, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,974,222 in bonds and notes of the Township to finance part of the cost thereof.
I have to move this. I have to get my little script here. I don't usually do this. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on April 19th, 2016.
I gotta find my script for this. Let's see, what Second.
Just before we vote on it, want to let people know that this is our capital budget for the year. We'll be doing road improvements, making some improvements at the Woodland. We'll be purchasing a backup ambulance. We'll be giving the final payment to a new fire engine. We'll be acquiring a new jitney bus. Library will be doing replacement of the windows at the Hilton branch of the library, and a number of other things that we need to do around town. So, and
My asphalt heater is in there?
Yes, it
yes, the asphalt heaters in
It's
there.
mine too. I
I
checked,
vote
I
no
made
on
sure.
the asphalt
Yes.
heater.
The Brownlee Lembrick asphalt heater?
Yes,
That's right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, burning the tar.
It is in there.
We did get March 21st, we received a credit opinion from Moody's, which affirmed our AA2 rating for general obligation debt, and they have removed the township's negative outlook. They've said that management has undertaken a conservative approach to financial administration. We've budgeted conservatively for the last 3 years, and management has a policy of maintaining unadjusted current fund balance of 3 to 5% of its operating budget, and so they have removed the negative outlook, which is a good sign for us, all positive going forward. So we have a motion, it's been made and seconded. Can we please call roll call?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Here we have 6 discussion items. First is the outdoor cafe. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mayor. I was now that we're coming into outdoor dining season, there are a few issues with regard to the current ordinance that I'd like to bring up for discussion. One is our waiving the mere $100 fee, which, you know, may sound miserly on my part, but I see no reason to do that, because basically we're expanding the footprint and the amount of customers, therefore the amount of money that a restaurant can make with the additional tables of outdoor dining. The other part of it, though, is something I think prohibits businesses from being able to do outdoor dining that I'd like to see removed. And Mayor, you sent us some other towns that had similar ordinances, some requiring approval by the property owner for the business it leases to requiring them to provide a letter of approval or a signature on an application, and others that don't have such a requirement. Those that don't have a requirement, at least for our neighbor South Orange, which doesn't have the requirement, does require liability insurance, much the same as we would for somebody doing an event in a park or anything on our publicly owned land. Mary brought up a good topic with regard to any damage done to the sidewalk that could be part of, to alleviate any issues that might arise, since the property owner is required for sidewalk repair to do that. So I think it's, since we all know people are people, and some people are easy landlords and other people are more difficult or tight landlords. But I don't see, since this is public space, any reason to have permission of the property owner for its tenant to have outdoor tables, as long as they have the insurance, are responsible for any damage, repair, and follow the ordinance with regard to 4 feet clearance, et cetera, et cetera. So there's also another part of the ordinance that I didn't quite understand, and maybe it's is requiring 10 square feet per person, which didn't make much sense to me. With, as long as the clearance requirements are met, I don't see any reason and why somebody would need 3 by 3-ish amount of space for one person. So I didn't quite understand that requirement. It was in the discussion back in 2000. So those are my comments, so talk amongst ourselves.
The one thing, in 2014, we eliminated the $100 fee completely, so that's no longer.
Oh, okay, why?
So you
All right.
won that already, very good.
We eliminated it. Yeah, but I didn't want to eliminate it. I want them to pay the fee.
Oh,
We
no.
we
were waiving
charge
it.
fees for everything else.
We were
that
waiving it for years because,
You wanted more people to do it.
right,
Right, but it's $100,
right.
which isn't very,
And we felt that that was, particularly in the tough years.
Yeah.
And so we waived it for like 3 or 4 years, and then it was just to the opinion of the township committee to waive it altogether.
So what you're saying is that if she wanted it, she could propose a new
Proposed that-
ordinance.
we reinstate it.
To-
Well, it's, it's like anything else we require fees for. There's reasons for it, and, particularly those restaurants that have set a lot of tables, that require sometimes extra cleanup on the part of the Village Alliance or DPW, sometimes, paperwork, Board of Health and code enforcement have to make sure that the tables, the diagram is right, that there's clearance, there's work involved. So I personally am not necessarily in favor of having that waived. I don't know, we talked about it a little
I mean,
bit.
but say, at this point, since it's been removed, we'd have to affirmatively put it back in, and I'm not sure I'd vote for.
All right,
Um,
the other issues?
we have one instance where a restaurant wants to put tables out and the landlord is really resisting it. We have 5 or 6 other places which have tables out where the landlord, to our knowledge, has given consent because that's it. So I guess the question is, what do you do when a landlord seems to be unreasonable? That there's really no reason why
Right.
that landlord shouldn't do it.
That's why I think that,
And
yeah.
so is the question that we change it or that we put something in there that says, in the event a business cannot obtain the approval, then the township committee can hear like an appeal from the person and.
I'm just contextually, forgive me, and I think you had said something in this. So the space in front, who owns that?
The town.
Town owns that. So I guess I'm trying to pick up on your point where you were saying that was sort of similar to, events in the parks and things like that, where someone were to do a concert, a Maple Woodstock in the park.
No, that was with regard to the fee. That
Oh,
part,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we own the space in front of the property, but you're saying that the property owner who doesn't own the property in front of the property can prohibit the business
Yes.
operator from putting tables
Only
on
because we
land
have a
that
requirement in the application that permission, a letter from the property owner saying it's okay with him.
Okay.
So we remove that, then the property owner doesn't really have a say. I don't necessarily think there should be an appeal process. I think that's rather excessive for a business owner to have to go through just to put a few tables
Okay.
out.
No, I just
Yeah.
need to kind of step through the different pieces in my mind,
Uh-huh.
just to make sure I was understanding it correctly. Okay. Okay, I don't necessarily see where that permission should be necessary either. So I think I would be in favor of striking it. Obviously, the property owner, if in fact they felt that in doing so, they were doing something that they didn't find agreeable, obviously at the end of whatever the lease is, they could choose not to renew that lease for that business owner. If it's so egregious an offense that they don't like it, even, they don't own that property in front, but if they feel that, just like any other reason, if they feel that the business owner isn't doing something that they want, they could not renew the lease. Am I saying anything legally incorrect?
No. I broke it, yeah. No, I just, and I don't want to argue with Ms. Adams, but I'm not sure
Why not?
that, I'm not sure that the statement that the owner doesn't own the property in front is correct. I think they probably do own it, subject to a public right-of-way, but you'd have to look at each individual survey on each individual property. It's kind of like the sidewalk in front of your house. You own it, subject to a municipal right-of-way. So I don't know, and we are on a given street in town, that property line is, because if you were going to follow your logic to its conclusion, and the township, in fact, is the owner, well, then certainly they wouldn't have to get the owner's permission. They just have to apply to the town, because nobody owns it.
Right.
I mean, the town owns it, so the owner couldn't stop it.
Right.
All right? But if in fact they own the property, which is the assumption I think that I was certainly working on, that they owned at least from the building to the curb line, that's why we talked about the owner's permission.
Okay, because I don't,
That's my understanding.
Well, we certainly hold them responsible for it, because if
well,
they.
just like our sidewalk,
Right.
but you have the right of way.
So that's my thing. But if you're right and the property ends at the end of the building,
Right.
then this wouldn't even apply because the application
Okay,
to the
so-
town.
I guess that's why I'm asking that distinction there, and I asked that specifically,
Right.
because if the property owner owns that space, then I
Right.
don't see where our role would be. I understand from a public right-of-way standpoint, where
You wouldn't have to get permission from somebody who doesn't own it.
right, so that, I need to know the answer to that question before I could.
I mean, the only way you would actually know that is on the individual property, on the individual property, you'd have to get a copy of the survey.
Would it, I don't know if this is a kind of a blanket question, would the answer vary by individual property along a sidewalk?
Right, I know.
I would assume, on any given block, it would not.
Right.
Yes, I would assume on any
Seemed
given
to
block.
make sense,
it would
since,
not. Correct.
Okay.
And some of these properties that we're talking about have cellar doors,
Right.
steps going down, vaults going down, some of
In
the,
fact, those vaults go underneath the sidewalk
Correct.
to the street. So that's why I think that the person does own the property further than the front of the building.
but let's push the issue a little bit, because let's assume that the landlord does own that property. If we say that having outdoor cafes is a public good, and that's the reason we passed this ordinance, and then we have landlords who are just being unreasonable, or, being unfair, or just trying to make a quick buck.
Can I? But with all due whatever, if they own the property, is it our, I understand that public good bit of it, but something strikes me as a bit something about sort of that government intervention in private property, something. I don't know, maybe there's a blurry line because it's a public right away, public good type thing, but I don't know. It seems somehow something for us to kind of, even if they're being, in our estimation, unreasonable, to sort of usurp the fact that they own the property.
Well, the irony too is what you started to say before, that if they don't like what their business is doing, but the irony here is that this actually makes the business more secure by opening it up and giving it more floor space, if you will, and more customers and more money, which makes them pay their rent.
But we wouldn't be in the
yeah.
business of protecting them from shooting themselves in the foot.
But I'm confused then as to what we can do if, I agree with the mayor, and that this is something that we do to allow businesses and the downtown, which we have, we talk about all the time, any downtown business district being able to be successful. And one of the best ways to do that is to have life on the street, if you will. So other towns require no permission from the property owner. And any town I've worked in, there's been each issue. But I've dealt with both, but we've never dealt with your question as to where the property line ends. It's always been that, with the zero setback, that's the property line. That's never even come up. So how do we deal with that?
But if there was some damage to the sidewalk as a result of the tables being out there, presumably the property owner would be responsible for making those repairs.
Yeah.
And so if they would rather not have the risk of that happening, and so they chose to prohibit, because from their economic standpoint, they didn't want to have to potentially deal with that.
Right, well, that's why
How can we sort of force them to say, no, you need to?
Sorry. That's why the mayor suggested that be part of the responsibility of the business, the tenant, as repairing it, as part of the.
You kind of layering things on, though.
I mean, where I'm coming out, I think, is maybe similar to what Mr. Brownlee was suggesting, which is, if the land belongs to the property owner, I guess I have a certain reluctance, similar to Mr. Brownlee, of inserting the town into the contractual relationship between the property owner and the restaurant, and telling a landlord that otherwise wants to prohibit activity that they can't do it. Although we'd have to consider whether or not there's enough public interest in having these outdoor cafes to do that. However, if the space is really owned by the town, then there's no reason for the landlord to be able to come in. The landlord's not a party to this.
I agree.
So, this may mean that depending on different sites, there's sort of different rules because of who owns the property. But I would need to think much more carefully about whether I would support the town basically overruling the landlord on the landlord's property, because what we're doing is the landlord is leasing a certain amount of space, is leasing 2,000 square feet to this business, and then, a couple of extra, whether it be dozen or 100 square feet, is being obtained through this against the landlord's permission. I'm not sure that on behalf of the town, I'd feel comfortable injecting ourselves and telling the landlord what they have to do with their property.
Could I, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Raise my
Go
hand
ahead.
first,
Go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
I'm kind of now, considering another scenario is if we think that it's in, just like as we're saying, oh, if a property owner is being unreasonable by not permitting a business to do that because we feel it's in the public good. Well, what if we feel it's in the public good, but a business chooses not to have an outdoor cafe? Can we compel them to open one because they feel it's in the public good? I mean, it seems like those are kind of parallel type things. We're kind of injecting ourselves in something that, you know, if one is valid, then the other would be valid as well. It's in the public good. You need to open an outdoor cafe. It's for the public good. I don't know. It just seems to me kind of a.
Yeah, I think I don't see it going that way at all. I think the issue is a tenant wanting to do outdoor tables, but this requirement for the landlord to sign off on that, even if it's in fact a public sidewalk. So perhaps, and Roger, you can answer this. Can we require, if in lieu of permission, or change this so that permission from the landlord is only necessary if that property is theirs, and then you need, what, a survey of the property?
Yeah, well, clearly, if it's not theirs, I agree with you 100%, Ms. Adams. I mean, if it's township property and they put an application in and you approve the application, I don't think there is a need for consent. But I think that's really becomes the issue.
You're responsible to prove that it isn't. Wouldn't it be the applicant? If the applicant, shouldn't it be the applicant should.
Yes.
You see, I guess the thing is, I understand we have, and there's a whole nother layer here, and that's the ABC license. For anyone who has an ABC license, we actually have to vote on expanding a place to place. We have to create a place in front of
Extension of premises.
Extension of premises. And that's the place to place hearing.
Which is kind of crazy.
Well, that's how it works, though.
No, I understand. But so if I don't have a liquor license, you can bring your own without any issue. You can have a BYOB, but if you have a liquor license, you got to go through this.
Well, in the original ordinance, we didn't allow your BLB outside, and then we changed it in 2008.
Well, Ms. Richard actually and I had a conversation, and she checked with ABC, and in fact, that is the process that has to be adopted.
Right. So it's a place to place if you want to have, you have to come before us. So in addition to the cafe ordinance, you have to do the cafe thing, and
But
then
that presumes that you're going to serve outside. In theory, a business could say, we're just not going to serve alcohol at the outdoor cafe.
Yeah,
theory, but I
that would
think
be.
we'd need to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they would logically do that from a business perspective. I'm just saying I think they could legally do that. But
I mean, it would probably be a nightmare for us to monitor it, but yes. But is there a way to say that we leave this the way it is, because it seems to be working for everyone else, unless, and just say an owner's consent is not needed if the property is not the owner's?
I don't think you have to say it, because if they don't own it,
By
okay,
implication.
I mean, what it says is, if the person owning the premises, together with the owner's consent. Okay, well, maybe the issue of premises is the word that needs to be changed. Okay, as opposed to the owner of the property to be encumbered, or I can come up with a verb.
Okay.
Okay, but but I'm not sure that. And I
may not solve this particular problem.
It only addresses half of it.
You could amend the ordinance, and I'm not sure it'll achieve the purpose you want.
But I think it addresses Ms. Adams' point that if the property owner owns a sidewalk, then I would agree with you. I was just throwing out something to see, pushing it. Because it's a takings, I think. You can't take, that's the whole issue there. You can't take private property. But if it's not, then I think your point is if it's public, then they just have to come to us and ask us, because we're the owners.
Correct.
So you can do something with this and bring it back for discussion?
Sure. So you want me to do that? Want me to change that verb? And
why don't you come back with?
I mean, because in a sense, you'd be asking the property owner, talking about the sidewalk in either case, right? I mean, if we own it, then they have to ask us. And if the property owner owns it, then they have to ask the property owner.
But Mr. D'Asterio, to the extent that the ordinance is unclear and might otherwise suggest that in either case, it's the owner it's the landlord of the restaurant. I think that's what we'd want to change, to specify that it's the property owner of the sidewalk, not the property owner of the building the restaurant's otherwise located in.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can certainly do that. Absolutely. I believe there's only one section, and we'll get you something for next meeting.
Great.
Thank
Thank you.
Now, you also brought up the point about the 10 square feet. I agree.
Yeah, I don't get that. I
I don't
mean, are
think we
these
need to
only
do
really
that.
wide people that can, I mean, I don't get it. Like 10 square feet per person, but generally,
That's 187-6E3.
Got it.
Cubic feet would make more sense to me, but
it just seems
Yeah, I don't think.
kind of odd.
Listen, they should be able to put as many chairs and tables as
Yeah,
they can fit out there.
as they
If
can
want
fit
people to
and that,
be-
yeah.
They have to get 4 feet.
that can
I mean, is the issue that they're otherwise constrained by fire codes in terms of inside, how many people they can have? And we're trying to avoid overcrowding. I mean, if so, it seems that the overcrowding outdoors is not as big an issue in terms of fire codes that you'd have indoors, so.
No, not only that, but you still have to leave 4 feet of clearance, so.
Yeah, I don't
there's only so
remember
much-
why we said that. We must have had a terrific reason why we had it.
Well, I think it came from Mr. Mittelmeyer, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think that's what we said here. That, I think Ms. Davenport references him as having a minimum. The other thing that, just want to bring up the other point, that not to lose it, because we don't have anything in here that says that if the tables destroy the sidewalk, that somebody has to be responsible for bringing it back to its condition before. So whether or not the owner or the merchant
Or the
I think
business
it's-
owner.
or the business owner or the
It's a
property
public-
owner, somebody's got to accept responsibility. There's nothing
Should
in
be the
here
applicant.
that says that they have to, they put out those metal chairs, for example.
Yeah.
And
And they
suppose they
stretch.
start to pop the bricks. Who's responsible to put
Well,
that back?
how about if in the indemnification provision, 187-11, we say, may incur, it's indemnification for liability purposes, but we could also say may incur or be placed to pay because of personal injury, including death or property damage suffered by any person or persons as a result or related in any way to the operation, maintenance of the outdoor cafe. How about if we also just insert in there township? So they're responsible for any property damage suffered by any person or persons and the township of Maplewood as a result of or relating in any way to the operation, maintenance of the outdoor cafe for which a license
That's
is issued.
specific enough that we're talking about the township sidewalk?
Sure, we'll put in the township, including but not limited to the sidewalk.
Okay. All right, so can you,
But what are we doing about the 10 feet? That part.
taking that out?
Take it out completely?
Yeah, as long as.
There's
the
no reason
clearance
to,
is required.
because, sometimes they, like, I saw Arturo's, they had like a picnic table.
Right.
And some don't, some use, smaller chairs.
Most likely on Maplewood Avenue,
Okay.
those businesses that face and aren't on a corner like Arturo's are only going to be able to put 2 tops out there anyway.
Right,
And if
so
they-
I don't think we need to have this minimum. thing.
If a business wants to have thumbtack-sized chairs and stick 50 of them in there,
Maybe those
nobody's going to
slipper
go,
chairs.
nobody's going to go, and
Those
then they'll have to
slipper
make
chairs
bigger
at the-
chairs.
Oh, yeah.
There's
At
sort of a
the-
natural
at the,
limit to
The
things.
furniture store. Okay. Are we good for this, to introduce it, or do we want to see it and talk more before introducing it?
I'm fine with introducing it.
If those things we just talked about are in it.
Okay?
Yeah, I have no objection.
So let's introduce this with the changes at the next meeting. And also just remember that it is a fairly deliberate second stage we have to do with anyone who has an ABC license that wants to do a cafe.
Is that already dealt with in this application?
No,
No, it's not, right?
it says that it has to meet ABC codes.
Right.
Section 4.
Section. I don't know if I have
4B.
section 4.
4B.
That process included by reference, or is it actually embedded in?
Yes, it says, having been granted a place-to-place liquor license transfer as defined by the Alcoholic Beverage Control Division.
And is that a
Right.
one-time
Separate.
thing?
Mayor, can I say a couple things on that? They
Yeah.
probably should start the process.
Right away.
Yeah, because in addition to completing the 12-page application, paying the $200 fee to the state, publishing in the newspaper, and having a hearing, it'll take a little bit of time.
Let me ask you a question on a place-to-place transfer. Does the property owner have to sign off on that application?
No, they do not.
Only the liquor
Business has
license
the
holder.
License, right?
But in the lease that they've negotiated, they've authorized them to operate that business at the leased premises.
Right. Okay.
So it wouldn't be a place-to-place transfer, would it? Just an extension of premises?
It is a place-to-place
Oh, they changed.
transfer, and the statute really is the extension of premises.
So did when Highland Place was in operation and they had the tables outside, did they do an extension of premises on that?
Highland Place never had outside tables.
I sat at them several times.
Well, you were not supposed to.
Highland Place was pretty creative with their glass.
Yes.
Yeah, but it
Oh,
was
that's
still
true.
on the sidewalk.
Their tables were not to be on the
I
sidewalk.
think Coda should do that to their front windows, open them up. I told them that too. They
I
don't-
also,
Okay.
Mayor, can I just add one more thing?
Yes.
I have two landlords, by the way. It is not one, two landlords who have refused to sign.
Two landlords?
Two. And they're different.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next up, the revisions to redevelopment area 2. I passed around earlier a memo from Paul Greigel, our planner. As you probably know, area 2, we have not had success in marketing that property there for development. It is now, the principal permitted uses are apartment buildings, stacked flats, townhouses, single family and two-family homes, parks, and live workspace. It has been the discussion of the Economic Development Committee that since this has been passed, there have been apartments built in and around that area which have increased the density there, and it was our feeling that we didn't want to increase the density anymore. So what we are suggesting is adding permitted uses that would include retail businesses, health spas, indoor commercial recreation, mixed-use development, office buildings, wholesale businesses, breweries, and distilleries. This is an industrial area now, and we're looking to bring it back into a commercial, industrial, retail area. It still may be possible to do some residential there. Hopefully, it would be part of a mixed-use building, or it would be of low density. So we're proposing to move forward with this, and wanted to see if anyone had, let's see, there's one other thing on, I would also define the reuse of existing buildings, because I think at one point, those buildings were thought that they were going to come, those commercial buildings were going to come down, and new residential buildings were going to go up, but now we're talking about even the possibility of using some of those commercial buildings for some new commercial use. So if everyone's okay, what we'd like to do is to put it on for introduction at the next meeting.
Yes.
Yes, because as we talked about at EDC, it was.
All right, Mr. Desiderio, you can make that happen. You have the stuff from Mr. Greigel, right?
I do. I'm looking at it. I do have a question. With regard to page 4, which is page 4 that was on his redevelopment plan vision, do we want to leave all of this in, the plan vision comments, including the new language that he has on the bottom?
You know what, I would leave it in only for historic reference,
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
just to let people know that there was a 2006 community workshop and people did talk about things. And then there's a justification as to why we're changing it, because in 10 years since the workshop, the vision has really not been able to be achieved.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, next up, you, Mr. Desiderio, amending the application for the CCU.
I am speaking on behalf of Mr. Mittermeier. With the recent run of owners in limited liability companies flipping houses, we have continually had issues with the principles of ownership. Maplewood Code Section 204-4.4 does not provide for who is to be indicated as the owner. We have LLCs and similar companies filing as the owner, but has no requirement of the principal name, a good mailing address. I'm asking for consideration to amend the ordinance section to indicate that a person's name, a principal, be required along with their personal mailing address. Lately, we had a post office box in a FedEx retail space, a nondescript business address, and other examples. In short, without the ID of the buyer by name and address, we cannot issue summonses or contact via writing for prospective owners. So what basically he's asking for is that with limited liability companies, I guess limited liability companies, partnership, if I do this job long enough, maybe it'll sink in. And corporations that we secure the name, address, and phone number of a person who would effectively be a contact person. Seems to make good sense to me.
And we do that with the rental registration. There has to be, the owner of that building has to be listed and has to be posted there.
Yes.
And it has to be more than just a post office
Yes.
box. So, yeah, I think it would be consistent. Is everybody okay with changing that? So there would be a live person with a live address?
For a limited liability company, I'll say a managing member. For a corporation, I'll say the officer in charge, partner in charge, et cetera. So, and we need a mailing address, not a PO box, and a phone number where the party can be reached. Okay.
Okay.
All that makes sense to me.
All right. Mr. Lembrick on the A3420.
Yes, a few weeks ago, Mayor DeLuca, Deputy Mayor Adams, and myself had the opportunity to meet with our state assembly members, Mila J.C. and John McKeon, as well as some representatives from the South Orange Board of Trustees, the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education, and the West Orange Town Council and Board of Education as well, to discuss an issue which we've discussed before here in this venue, and I know a lot of people in our community are very concerned about, which is the state of education funding in our district specifically and in New Jersey in general, and the extent to which every year our school budget is really stretched and our tax dollars continue to despite high taxes, not be enough to maintain the levels of staffing and other programs in our public schools. And the main reason for that is insufficient funding from the state of New Jersey to assist us, and well over 94, close to 95% of our budget at this point for our public schools here in South Orange and Maplewood is coming out of our local municipal taxes. And that is a much higher rate than the state average. And what Assembly members McKeon and J.C. have proposed is this Assembly Bill 3420. And I wanted to bring that up for discussion tonight. A brief overview of the bill. The bill proposes to take $122 million out of the state budget for education. Most of that Governor Christie is otherwise earmarking to go towards charter schools, many of them in Newark, but charter schools all around the state, rather than putting them into public schools. This would redirect those funds, $122 million, to provide additional state funding to districts that are currently overtaxed and underfunded by the state. There's a formula within that bill that provides that the districts that will qualify for this additional aid are those that have an equalized school tax rate that's 35% greater or more than the state average equalized school tax rate, and the amount of funding that each district would be entitled to receive would be the lesser of the difference between the district's proposed aid in the year 2017 and the full amount of funding under the CIFRA formula, or the difference between the district's tax levy and its local fair share. In the case of South Orange and Maplewood, that difference for this year would come to nearly $2.2 million, $2,179,393. That is money that, as I mentioned before, would be able to, not only close the recent budget gap, which caused such a crisis and caused the Board of Education to have to lay off numerous personnel, including classroom teachers and reading specialists and other intervention staff, and also would be able to potentially either do even more in terms of programming and staffing in our schools, and or to allow the Board of Education to provide tax relief, which I'm sure the community would appreciate as well. So this bill is still in the early stages. I know that the last we spoke a few weeks ago with our Assembly members, they were seeking sponsors and looking to move this forward. Realistically, I think they don't expect that the governor would sign this, but they do want to try to get momentum in both the State Assembly and the State Senate, and also get districts like ours. There's 142 school districts, by the way. We're only one of 142 that would qualify for this aid, and to raise awareness around this issue and also make these 142 districts advocates for, if not this bill, some sort of change to the state education funding system, so that districts like ours can get our fair share of state education funding, and be in a position to, if not this bill, be able to rally around and support a different piece of legislation, perhaps after we have a new governor. So that my purpose in bringing this forward was to inform those on the committee who weren't at the meeting, and also the public who was not at that meeting, about this bill, and also allow the opportunity for the Township Committee to discuss this. And I do plan to bring forth a resolution at a future meeting, if not the April 19 meeting, then perhaps one of the meetings in May. And I'll be asking for the support of the Township Committee in issuing a resolution in support of this Assembly bill.
Which is what happened at that meeting and when we asked the Assembly representatives what we could do. Passing a resolution is a first step anyway, and they'll be keeping us informed as to what else we can do, so that basically we've not been getting the money we should be getting for a very long time. And luckily, there are other municipalities from top to bottom of New Jersey, not just certain section. The hard part will be the cities that get a lot of money that we currently don't get. So it'll be very political, fortunately. But
Elliot, you were not at the meeting. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I was listening carefully to the way that you were describing the overview of this, and I know that you sent this to us. Obviously, I just got it a short time ago, so I haven't really had a chance to look through it. So I'm responding strictly to your remarks, if you would. Clearly our schools are woefully under-helped. I'll coin a phrase here, in terms of the amount of funding that we get from the state to address the requirements for the students in our schools, and I've long lamented that. As I heard you describe it, what I was hearing, and I'm going to say this, obviously as an elected official in the Township of Maplewood, my primary concern is with the residents of Maplewood and our kids going to the schools in Maplewood. But at the same time, I don't want to absent myself from the larger picture. And when I was listening carefully to your remarks, and you can tell me if I'm misphrasing it, what I heard was 122 million that is currently going to charter schools would, in a sense, be redirected, and the schools, of which we would be one of 142 districts, would effectively kind of divvy that up. And I'm over paraphrasing it a bit, but I guess my concern is that the upshot of that, as I'm kind of hearing it, is that it still essentially becomes a zero-sum game. and effectively, you know, somebody wins, somebody loses, when in fact the true answer is that, you know, we're under aided, but the answer is not necessarily that somebody else therefore ought to get less. Maybe everybody, you know, we need to get more. That doesn't mean they should get less. And so my concern is in framing it as I thought I heard, money that is going to charter schools in another municipality would, in a sense, be redirected to us. I can't preclude the fact that perhaps that money is needed in that. And just to say that they're getting a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean they don't need it. And so my concern is that if, and again, I have not gone through this, I'm strictly reacting to the way you described it. If the upshot of it is essentially that this is being depicted as sort of a zero-sum game where we take from them and we get more, certainly we need more. You know, again, sitting in Maplewood, I know all the figures you're talking about in terms of our school budget. But at the same time, I don't think the answer is necessarily that, you know, sort of we have to take away from them so that we can get more. You know, the answer is obviously that more should be coming down, if you will, from the top, and not necessarily that they should be getting less. And so I would need to dive into this a bit more to understand if my understanding of it is as I think I'm hearing it. But I guess my preference would be that not only is the formula looked at in terms of how it's just being distributed, but the pie itself, you know, should be bigger as well. And it isn't strictly a matter of the pie stays the same size and we just need to see who gets a bigger slice, but rather the pie itself needs to be expanded. More money needs to go into education funding in general. And I don't necessarily see it even as oh, well, in the short run, we'll just get more of the pie, but eventually the pie will be made bigger, so they'll be made whole again. And I guess I just need to dive into this in a little more detail. And obviously, you know, I apologize, we just got a short time ago, to see if that's effectively how I'm reading it here, if my understanding is correct.
Sure. And I'd be happy to expand if I can, Mr. Brownlee. You know, the bill itself, I was probably oversimplifying somewhat. The bill itself is not, the $122 million the bill would call for, is not itself redistributive. It's not calling for that money to come from any particular part of the state's multi-billion-dollar education budget. I was giving the example of, you know, Governor Christie in terms of his budget priorities this year for the education budget has basically said he wants to earmark nearly $100 million to increase aid to charter schools. So I was giving that as an example of something that is currently being prioritized. That I think Assembly members McKeon and J.C. are sort of saying, let's make this money a priority as well to go to the districts that are out there that are underrated. But at the end of the day, I think you're right. Everyone is sort of fighting over a pie, and if the pie doesn't get bigger, then anyone who gets a bigger piece means someone else gets a smaller piece. And the political issue, which I think Deputy Mayor Adams was referring to, was some of the districts that are most overrated, that are receiving money above their CIFRA formula, money that allows them to tax at much less than their local fair share, including both Abbott districts and non-Abbott districts. There would really be the candidates really for fair redistribution to take money from districts that are overrated. There's a political problem there of trying to take money from those districts, and where that's a surmountable problem remains to be seen. But one thing that I think both sides of this issue and trying to agree on is that there's no foreseeable way to increase the size of the pie. So obviously the ideal situation would be to have a bigger pie, so that way everyone can either get the piece they're getting or get a bigger piece. But in the meantime, with the pie not getting bigger, and with pension obligations and other things just continuing to grow, redistribution of aid is may be the only way for districts like ours to realistically increase our state aid.
Okay. That's good.
Question. So, thank you for that extra elaboration. And I don't know if the figure you quoted, like 100 million or whatever. Again, I'm using my pie analogy again. Is it that the pie effectively is staying the same size, and now of that pie, 100 million is being redistributed to fund those charter schools? Or is the pie being increased by 100 million, and that 100 million is going to charter schools effectively?
My understanding is that it's 90 million.
Whatever the number is.
Yeah, it's 90 million, and that Governor Christie has said that his top priority for that would be charter schools. I don't know whether by that he meant that all 90 million of the increase in school funding for this year would go to charter schools, but I do know that the priority for those increases I guess would be charter schools.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is, and I think I was hearing you say the latter part. If in fact the pie is increasing by 90 million, and he has made a decision that that increase will be devoted solely to charter schools, arguably the question about the pie getting bigger, you were saying earlier, well, in this case, the pie is getting a little bigger, and arguably, maybe some money, and maybe in addition to that 90, maybe those districts need those 90. But in fact, another 40, 90, 80, whatever number also needs to come to schools like ours. I guess I don't want necessarily the answer to be that those schools that may in fact need that 90, we need to get, and the pie is getting bigger, that we need to take from them to get ours. I think we need ours, but I don't necessarily want to have it be a strictly a zero-sum game discussion.
Well, I think what happened this year was that the education budget in general is proposed to go up. Mm-hmm. And the bulk of that increase is for new charter schools. Mm-hmm. And I think the argument is that if this is new money, let's have a discussion about how to spend that, maybe in addition, or as an alternative, or in addition to charter schools. Okay. And this is one of those ways. Okay. But as I understand it, the governor is proposing an increase in the overall education budget.
Okay. Okay.
So the pie is getting bigger.
Okay. Okay. And so the question is,
not significantly, but it's getting bigger.
That's fine. And so therefore,
his priority is to allocate that the largest portion of that increase to charter schools.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
And just to clarify, what I was saying is not the pie won't get bigger, because the education budget does, in most years increase by some amount.
Well, there was one year it went down by 800. So I remember that. That was in 2000.
But in the last years, normally, I think it has, sort of slowly crept back up.
Yes.
But at least, according to Representatives McKee and JC, the pie will not increase by enough to fully fund all of the districts. So, so someone's going to come up with either less than they've been getting or less than they're supposed to get. And I guess, the only difference that we might have, and I don't intend to speak for you, but in a world where it is a zero-sum game, I would want to advocate and have our legislators advocate to get as much of that sum for South Orange and Maplewood, because ultimately, I think as elected officials for this community, that's what we'd want to do, is, as you said.
Yeah, no, I think with the framing that you gave there, Mayor, I think I understand it a bit better. Because again, I didn't recognize that the pie was getting bigger. So I think it's fair to say we ought to have a discussion if some charter schools are saying, hey, we're hurting, we need more money. Well, we can say the same thing. And so we can have a discussion about how, if the pie is going to get bigger, how much goes to them and how much goes to us. I just want to make sure that was this discussion, rather than the pie is fixed, but now we're going to carve out a piece of this and we're going to take it away from them and give it to us. And so now that I understand the issue better, given that extra elaboration that you both gave, I understand the purpose, and I think I'm fine with this.
And just for clarification, the bill A3420 proposes 122 million in the increase in state funding this year, is I think approximately 90 million. So even if this bill was fully funded, it would go beyond, the proposed increase.
Okay.
Even if we were to take every dollar that was going to charter schools and put it into this. Although a lot of the charter schools, as the mayor suggested, would be new charter schools, it wouldn't go towards additional funding for existing charter schools. It would go towards starting new charter schools. And, one can have a whole separate debate about whether we should be building new charter schools rather than funding the public schools we have. And I don't think anyone would have trouble guessing what side of that debate I'd come out on. But that's not really a debate for the Maplewood Township Committee.
Okay, thank you.
I think what will be helpful is as this bill works its way, and I don't think it's even been dropped yet. I don't think it's been introduced yet.
Okay.
I think they're fine tuning it and they're dealing with the speaker about it. But as this moves forward, just getting some clarity on all these funding options, because it is going to be important that we get behind this. And I was going to mention later, but I'll just mention now since we're talking about it. On May 2nd, there's going to be a community forum sponsored by the board on school funding and legislative advocacy. This came out of our meeting last night. So I'm sure this bill and other bills, because there's a whole nother proposal by Senate President Sweeney around redoing the formula. Now there's going to be significant losers and winners because it does not increase the pie sufficiently to make that happen without taking from everyone. So, but this is a little different.
Right.
So
That's why I need to understand
Yeah.
what we're talking about here.
Okay with this? So when it's ready to be brought back, you'll keep an eye on this and bring it back to us?
Right, yeah, I'll monitor this, and when it's ready, I will come back.
Terrific.
And it doesn't seem as though that'll be next meeting, but it'll be at a future meeting, and ask for support for a resolution.
Okay. Next up is the changes to the leaf blower. It was suggested that we have leaf blowers 12 months a year, 24 hours a day. Just have them keep running, and then we'll be used to them. We won't hear them.
Don't fuel me on this. I go from 0 to 100 on this issue in about 2 seconds.
Well, this is a discussion, and it's my name listed here. I asked for it to be added to the agenda, but it's really something that an interest of both Deputy Mayor Adams and I have had in different committees. I know that Deputy Mayor Adams has had this come up in the Public Works Committee, and this is something that has been a hot topic of discussion for the past couple of months in the Environmental Advisory Committee, and I know it's also been an issue that's been important to many members of the Green Team, some of whom are here tonight. And we have our ordinance regarding, part of our current ordinance regarding the lawn businesses and lawn maintenance businesses includes some regulations regarding leaf blowers, including the decibel level and also the time of year. And there's been a lot of interest, both from Ms. Adams' committee and my committee, as well as from people in the public who are not members of either committee but have just reached out to me to see us revisit, either increasing enforcement of the current regulation or reforming the regulation to, expand the period of the year when leaf blowers are not allowed at all, to create new windows, whether it be certain times of day or certain days of the week when it wouldn't be allowed, and other ideas to reduce noise pollution and also reduce, the gas pollution that's going on in our community. And I've heard from residents who've said that, there's some days where, they just know, okay, well, apparently this is the day when this company is coming and this company serves 4 or 5 yards in my neighborhoods. They just know, from 8 a.m. until lunchtime, or from lunchtime until the sun goes down, there's going to be, just a constant deafening hum of leaf blowers. And it's a serious quality of life issue. And I don't have a specific proposal to bring forward tonight. This was really more to take the temperature of the committee about whether there would be interest in putting together, either a new ordinance or amending the ordinance that we have, and whether there would be the interest to just create, times of year or increase the times when leaf blowing is not allowed, or to change the decibel rating. We're somewhat limited by the technology here. If the average, if leaf blowers that are on the market are either at 65 or 75 decibels, us setting it, us lowering it to 60, basically would be banning leaf blowers, which some people advocate. But I wanted to bring this before the committee and get sort of a sense of the committee of what there might be an appetite to do here before either my committee or Ms. Adams' committee takes this further in terms of either research or putting together a proposal for a new ordinance or an ordinance amendment. So I wanted to raise this for discussion and just get the thoughts of my colleagues.
So just another thing is, I put this on for the code committee meeting next Tuesday morning because I think those are the folks who have to enforce it.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to do a better job than we've done in the past, so there's a whole, we need to look at maybe changing what we have. We also need to look at enforcing what we have. So we have multiple jurisdictions here because we have DPW gets the registration, and presumably we now have roughly about 30 registered landscapers, which has gone up since the beginning of March. And but there are many more in town that are cutting grass that aren't registered. So we need to get code enforcement out there with this list, and when they see somebody who's not on this list out there, they need to give them a ticket. So we'll do that next Tuesday morning. We'll talk about a game plan to make that happen, and it might take some additional time to do that, overtime and stuff, because some of that is on weekends too. Mm-hmm. Some of these folks work on weekends and they kind of skirt that. So that's a whole nother thing. Then I think it would be useful for the two committees to talk about what changes we need. I will tell you this, because I was involved in putting together this. It is a very difficult problem because there are folks in town that have landscapers that can't do this work themselves. They can't find a landscaper to do work other than the kind of prescribed work that they do to blow around one blade of grass. And when we talked about this before, there were people on both sides of the issue, and I'm sure there's going to be people on both sides of the issue again. We tried to work something out, and we were working with the lawnmower repair place, P&P, and Charlie there to come up with this solution, this technical solution of the 65 decibels. But this is quite old. This was an old conversation that we had, and this was the compromise. We come up with this, and we were hoping that leaf blowers would be sort of the technology would change and they would become quieter, but they really haven't. So I think we have to take another look at it, recognizing that maybe what we tried to do back whenever we did this is really not working anymore, because there's really an abuse of the blowers.
Right, and I think that's something that a number of people have approached me with, is that, it may be that just one leaf blower going at a time at 65 decibels would be tolerable, but when there's a crew of 3 or 4 or 8 guys spread on, their neighbors' yards, it's just deafening, and the smell of gasoline just sort of hangs in the air all day. And I think that a lot of these businesses try to go during the week as opposed to on weekends, which is largely good for people like me who usually work out of the home. But I think for people who have young children at home and are home, or people who, it's a large part of our community that works from home, for those people that do not have basically to be deprived for hours at a time, at least one day a week of the sort of enjoyment and solitude of their home is something that, that we need to consider as a quality of life issue. And obviously, the flip side of the coin is what is practical in terms of people getting the yard work done, and also what's cost effective, because people don't want to see the cost of their lawn maintenance go through the roof because of regulations that we pass here that are difficult to comply with and expensive. So, so I agree that this does require further consideration, but I wanted to, get your thoughts, get Mr. Brownlee's thoughts. Ms. Adams and I have discussed this extensively among ourselves and with our committees, but, we did not want to go too far down the road of looking at amending this or making new regulations if it was a non-starter with others on the committee.
Ms. Adams, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty well known, my feelings about this issue. I've lived here 26 and a half years, and for the first 7 of those, I was home with my kids when they were young. And I was home all day, and this was rarely, if ever, an issue. It never even came up. It was hardly ever there. If there were landscapers, they were using rakes or maybe one piece of equipment or a mower. And for the last couple years, I've been working from home, and it's horrible and it's ridiculous. And and one of the things that came up when I went to the environmental committee meeting was that the landscapers are coming in with with seemingly the only regard for increasing their business and making money. That being done by scheduling several houses in the same area at the same time, or, so it's going on for a longer period of time nearby, doing the exact same thing to every, and we're going to be talking about pesticides, so doing the same thing on every house, whether it needs it or not looking at, what the issues are, but spreading chemicals or blowing leaves that aren't even there, blowing into the street. And unless they're watched, or unless I run across the street, say, it's not September 1st, you're not supposed to be blowing into the street, then they're doing it. And so there's been just a complete disregard for the existing ordinance, for the rules, and of course enforcement needs to go up. But to give some peace of mind to our residents and some peace and quiet, actually, we need to change this. And I've even talked to people who have landscapers who can't stand it anymore. So I'm stunned because I wasn't working from home for quite a while, and I'm just blown away by the difference between the two times I've been at home. So we need to, Greg, did we have a subcommittee environmental? Did they form a subcommittee to work on the existing ordinance? I
don't know that we formally
remember.
formed a subcommittee, but a number of people expressed interest in serving on such a subcommittee.
So maybe our solution, Mayor, with this work would be to have a couple of people from engineering and planning and public works committee and a couple people from environmental, just sort of meet separately and pick apart the ordinance and go through it and make recommendations for changes.
And perhaps a couple of different alternative proposals of, we can
Yeah,
do this or that.
A lot of that would be hashed out
Yep.
in that committee, but, in that subcommittee. But I'd certainly be willing to go through it. I think it's vital for our town in so many ways.
I think it would be good if the two of you took the lead, you as the liaison to both the Green Team and Environmental, and you as the chair of the Engineering, Public Works, and Planning.
Okay.
And come up with what you think the changes are. One thing that was helpful last time was to find out the experience of other towns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
So that's, similar to what we're talking about with the outdoor cafes.
Right.
Yep.
Which, by the way, a lot of those towns adopted our outdoor cafe ordinance. So when we make those changes, all those other ones are going to change too.
Yeah.
Mr. Brownlee, did you want to jump in at all here? We can't hear you because of the lawnmower. Go ahead.
No, I also think this is certainly an issue worth revisiting. I've lived here for 25 years, and there are times when I have had to work from home as well, depending on my particular client situation. And certainly of late, there have been times when I'm working from home, and as Mr. Lembrick said, you're kind of working in the solitude, the window's open, it's a nice idyllic day, and then, you get that, and, ironic choice of words, you're blown away. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting blown away. The gasoline smell that lingers in the air, the deafening noise, I'm also aware of all the stuff that gets blown into the air and you're breathing it in. It's definitely not a very, very pleasant situation, to put it mildly. At the same time, I'm sensitive to the economics of the situation. I mean, I recognize that there are certainly people who are, perhaps, again, not everyone's the same, but, it could be older people, fixed income, if, as Mr. Lembrick says, now the cost of having their lawn done and they can't physically do it themselves now shoots through the roof. Now what happens? So, there is no unilateral, just, here's the answer, or something like that. But yeah, I agree. Clearly, this is something that needs to be revisited. And so, look forward to whatever dialogue that we have on this.
So Mr. Lembrick and I will get together and
Please.
work on this.
Indeed. Thank you.
And we talked about, Mr. Manning, you had suggested that we send a news flash out about the registration requirement, and that people who utilize landscapers will show them what the list is.
We did that today.
You did that already?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I did have a question about that. I understand we're sending out maybe an email blast and something within the publication that's going out, but do we just have the list on the website of who are the current? I hear the number's 30 now. Is that on the website somewhere right now? I can go to the website and see the 30 that are.
Yes, under
Public
Department of
Works.
Public Works.
Okay,
then
and as
lawn.
additional ones come in, they'll just be added to the list? Okay, I just want to make sure, and, obviously.
Periodically, we'll update the list, not, maybe once a week or something like that.
Oh, well, feel free to send the name in, like I've taken like 10 pictures and
Well,
sent them.
I guess I was also looking at it, and again, I'm not asking for residents to necessarily be the police, but I mean, at the same time, if they go to the website and the list is there, and someone's outside who's not on that list and they feel like calling up, I mean, they shouldn't have to like figure out, oh, did I get the news blast, or, is this, I look, I see the list, they're not on the list, hey, they're here, and then, because code enforcement, I don't expect,
can't be
Mr. Minmeyer to be running around town looking for landscape companies who aren't on, and, oh, are you on the list? You don't, this way they can just focus their efforts. Somebody calls, says, these people here, they can go and deal with it.
It's there, and we'll keep it updated.
Thank you, sir.
Although I would be in favor of giving Deputy Mayor Adams a badge and a ticket.
I don't need the badge. I have my phone, my camera on my phone.
Okay. Let's move to number 6,
It's why-
consideration of banning pesticides on lawns.
Yes, this is similarly something that has come out of the Green Team and also the Environmental Advisory Committee. A number of communities, especially in the Northeast, from Maine to Maryland, have recently taken steps either at the municipal level or the county level to ban certain pesticides and other non-organic lawn products, particularly those that are used for cosmetic reasons. So, they have an impact on wildlife, they have an impact on pets, they have an impact on humans, especially when it gets into the water. And given Maplewood's position, not only in New Jersey, but nationally as an environmental leader on the municipal level, I thought that would be something that we could start looking into. But again, before the Green Team and the Environmental Advisory Committee went so far as to prepare a draft ordinance or other regulations, I wanted to bring this up for discussion here at the Township Committee to take the temperature of each of you and get a sense of the committee of whether this is something that is, you view as feasible and something you might support, and also to get any thoughts you might have about potential concerns or ideas to improve a proposal. And I would just note that some of the communities that have done this have done so just saying that the public areas need to follow this. Some have included private residences. Some have had exemptions for golf courses and other businesses. So I understand there'd be a number of different ways to come at this. Obviously, the easiest thing would be for the town to say we're not going to do it on our own property. It's then taken to another level if we tell private residents, what they can and can't do on their property, and then becomes even more complicated if we're going to start give exemptions and say the golf course can do it on its property, but we're not going to allow private residents to do it in their own garden. So those are issues that I wanted to raise, and similar to the last, just get a sense of the committee of where there was an interest in doing this, and then figure out whether that should be through the Environmental Advisory Committee or whether there should be other committees involved, potentially in a joint effort to form a subcommittee to look into this.
Funny you should mention golf courses, because there's been a lot of stuff in the press about the impact of golf courses and the maintenance work that's done on them on the environment. And I guess I do have some trepidation when we start carving out exemptions for certain types of things, while at the same time requiring that residents comply with one set of rules, and it's a different set of rules for certain entities who are seen then as being treated more favorably or more loosely, if you would. I guess my question would just be, and I'm not sure how other municipalities have done with it, just from an enforcement perspective, if we say that a certain type of inorganic something is prohibited, obviously they put it down on the lawn and then they're gone. How do you know if they use Roundup? Unless you catch them in the act and the bottle is there and it says Roundup on it. And so I guess I'm just, while I appreciate the sentiment, I agree with the sentiment that we should be going in that direction, as Mayor DeLuca said, in terms of enforcement. How do other municipalities deal with the enforcement side of things? Right. Obviously, you hope that they will comply, but how do you in fact enforce that they do?
Mr. Brown, to respond to that, one prominent example so far is Montgomery County in Maryland, which I think is by population the largest community to pass one of these ordinances. One of the complaints, or the cons of the ordinance is sort of the lack of enforcement. That they're basically just going to rely on the public to be the police and to call in complaints or to report instances where the law has been broken, and then it's it may be difficult after the fact to determine, unless we're going to do a CSI type analysis of what kind of chemical was put down. I do think enforcement is one of the things we'll have to look on, because there's an extent to which such a law or regulation may just raise awareness. But at the end of the day, if we can't enforce it, it's of limited value. The other thing I would mention, as maybe just an aside to something you said, is I would have a hard time supporting any regulation, particularly applying it to our private citizens in their own yards, if we were going to create exemptions for a golf course. I think at the end of the day, when I look at my license plate, it says New Jersey is the garden state, not the golf state. And I would want to have whatever law we pass and whatever requirements we put on for the good of the environment to apply to everyone around town, and not make exceptions for one group or another.
Yeah, and I'm just sort of recognizing, I mean, golf courses are a particular kind of business, and so they have a certain way they do things, and the economics are that they are. But again, sort of echoing the sentiment that I think you said, if it's good for the environment, it's good for the environment.
Yeah, I think that.
And it just is good for the environment. So therefore, carve out the exemption.
Yeah, I think the question on that, and obviously with Maplewood Country Club affecting their business, they have to maintain a certain look. So the question becomes, can they do the same thing? Can they achieve the same or close to the same quality of green and grass and everything with organic products as opposed to chemicals? I often cringe when I see a neighbor's house with little kids in it, and they have the flags that they just put down all these horrible things. And again, the commercial landscapers tend to do the same thing on every yard, regardless of the need. And I embrace my weeds, keeps my grass pretty green, actually. So I'm in favor of this, is what I'm trying to tell you. So I'm definitely in favor of looking into it and seeing what we can do. I don't know, I don't know that I agree that we might not have to carve out certain differences for, commercial use. I think that needs more investigation before we adversely impact a huge property like that. But
Yeah, actually, I actually have a question for Mr. Desiderio. Obviously, businesses came into existence under a certain set of conditions. A certain set of rules were in effect at the time they were established. And I don't know what the rules are in terms of sort of changing the rules of the game, for lack of a better term. I know that rules and regulations change all the time in general, but I'm not sure where that line, if one in fact exists, that you can't overstep a certain bounds in terms of changing the rules of the game. Am I phrasing my question well enough for you to give a reply?
Yeah, I understand your question. The answer is, I think there's a point at which you can't go there.
Right.
Okay, I don't think this is that point.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think two things. I think there's steps here, and first step is some kind of an integrated pest management program that relies less on toxic pesticides and more on organic supplements, organic herbicides. And I think what we need to do is to figure that out, help ourselves, because I think we, for the most part, use a non-toxic approach, but there are times that we do use toxins.
That's true, but only with the Township Committee's permission. It's
Right.
asked for.
Right. So we need to understand those reasons why. If we have an invasive species of some kind that we just can't deal with it any other way. I think we've approved Roundup in the past or something like that. And I think we need to have a conversation with the golf courses. There's a number of golf courses that are adopting a different technology now, and because farmers are finding that these chemicals are cutting into their bottom line.
Yeah.
So if you can do it without having to purchase these supplements, it's a good thing. So I think it's a process here. I don't think we're anywhere near voting to ban these.
Oh, no. That wasn't my
But
proposal.
I think what we need to do is to say that we want to move on the road to this, assuming that we have the authority to do this.
Did you have what there?
Authority to do this.
Yeah, I'd like to look into that.
Right.
But yeah, I'd like to see the ordinances that you have, Mr. Lundberg.
Yeah, no, I know, I have the one from, is it South Portland, Maine? It's a suburb of Portland, Maine, and then Montgomery County, Maryland are probably sort of the two largest communities that have done this. So I have those, so I can pass
Do we
those
have
on.
anything from New Jersey?
I'm not aware of any community in New Jersey that's done this yet. It's possible it's been done, but it hasn't been publicized.
I'd also ask, if you don't mind, if Mr. Roche still happens to be here, if he might do some research on this issue also.
Mr. Rowe,
From the help.
you could check that out.
Mr.
with
Manning,
your health officers, and Mr. Manning, you can check through your.
For our municipal management
Yeah, I mean,
association.
anything that any municipality is doing to try to reduce the amount of pesticide use, either of their, of their own, just so we could get that knowledge of their own utilization or in the community. And then, the question is this, are we banning this for commercial use or individual use? Can somebody go to Home Depot and buy a bottle of this stuff and pour it in something in their backyard, and are we going to give them a summons?
Right.
And maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
no,
that's-
that's a good question. And obviously, I mean, one thing that, I've certainly heard, and this would probably apply equally to the leaf blower that we were just discussing, is that, there are landscapers out there, perhaps not in our community, but there are sort of green landscapers and green landscaping equipment that I definitely know individuals who do their own lawn that use it. And, it may be that there'd be an opportunity to save, that even if the cost rose initially, that in the long term, landscapers could actually, save money rather than using gas, rather than using these, pesticides and chemicals. And something that Ms. Adams said that I wanted to echo is, when you see, we have so many families with children in the community, and they run around, and, knowing my own daughter, she doesn't always stay on our yard. And, if you have these chemicals, it's tough to sort of have the kids run outside and, worry about, what's in the air, what's getting into their system. And that's something that also happens with, with the leaf blowers. I know in my own neighborhood, it's sort of, when the landscapers show up, everyone pulls the kids back inside if they're playing, because it's going to be just so much gas in the air and noise. So, I do think we have to think of the children, and also think about the fact that, in this community, that not only as a governing body, but as an entire community prides itself on being green and being sustainable, that there may actually be a market for green landscaping. And to the extent that we can promote that, I think that we'd be doing the community a great service.
And speaking of kids, landscapers, I see families with, teenagers and stuff, and or even younger, who are old enough to start doing chores in the yard and things like that. And I think, God, I hope they make as much money as they need to hire landscapers, because they're not going to know how to mow a lawn. They're not going to know how to shovel snow. It's just basic stuff that we're supposed to train our kids. And on the pesticides thing, we're in danger in this whole country of getting rid of our bees and therefore our food supply. So I think it's a really important issue. And I think if we are the first community in New Jersey to do something substantial to try to curb this and educate the public as to reasons that we need to, then so be it. I'm in favor of doing so.
I mean, as a next step, Mr. Mayor, it sounds like, you'd be in favor and the committee would be in favor of the Green Team and the Environmental Advisory Committee moving forward to investigate this and coming up with proposals, and perhaps we can bring that to the Sustainability Committee?
Yep, that would be fine.
Okay, so yeah, I think I'll take a volunteer from Deputy Mayor Adams. We'll work together on both of these things.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the rolls.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
There's just sort of this, any discussion, please call roll.
Mr. Lembrick, you have a resolution?
I do. We have a proclamation in honor of Ms. Muhammad. As most people in the community already know and have heard the good news, Ms. Muhammad, who's a Maplewood, grew up here, went to school at Columbia High School, will be representing the United States in the Summer Olympics. And tomorrow, as part of the Maplewood Ideas Festival, she will be here at the Woodland tomorrow night. And that's an event that we hope the community will come out to and show their support for our local Olympic hero. And we have a proclamation that the mayor has signed, but I wanted to take this opportunity before Mayor DeLuca declares tomorrow as Ibti Muhammad Day to ask for the Township Committee to approve that proclamation.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Let's call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. At 7 o'clock tomorrow night, she will be signing autographs too. And we'll have a big cake for her.
Wonderful.
Yes. Maybe she's not going to eat it.
It's not in her Olympic diet.
I'll have her slice.
Yeah, it's not in your diet either.
We have public comment. Is there anyone who wants to address the Township Committee?
All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak tonight and for the comments you've made that have been very encouraging to me.
You have to give your name.
I will. I just wanted to say thank you first. So I'm Amy O'Mara. For full disclosure, I'm a Maplewood Democratic Committee district leader for District 1. I'm also on the Green Team, but tonight I'm here in my personal capacity. I've been a resident of Maplewood for 4 years. Like many people, I do work from home full-time. I work on sustainability issues for a living, actually. And as a result, I follow a lot of these issues regularly. Also relevant to this item, I'm a silver level participant in the town's new Sustainable Lawns program, REYARD. And also, I'm a mother. I have 2 young sons, and I'm unfortunately want to share the news that my 5-year-old has recently developed asthma. So I wanted to speak to both the leaf blower ordinance and the potential pesticide ban or partial ban. A lot of noise has been paid to the noise that leaf blowers make, and I want to echo that concern. As a person that must work from my home, and both working at my job and parenting my children, I do a bit of both of those things. I've been forced at times to shut myself into my basement to make important calls or run video conferences because the sound levels, even with every window and door closed, make it untenable. As many stories have been shared already tonight, on the most beautiful days of summer, I've tried to enjoy the yard on the weekend and have been forced inside for long periods of time because all of the houses in the vicinity have been employing multiple leaf blowers at one time, one house to the next in succession. And, you know, honestly, it sends me into a rage. I have moments where I'm like, I don't even want to live here anymore. It really feels unsustainable. You know, it makes it a horrible place to live sometimes, and I hate it. So I'm very passionate about this. But it's not only the leaf blowing around my house that concerns me. Each week, the homes around my son's school, he goes to Tuscan, employ their blowers right when the kids are getting outdoors onto the playground. Sometimes it's first thing in the morning when we're walking to school and when they're waiting to go inside. Other times it's after school when they come out on the playground. And aside from the deafening noise, the pollution is ridiculous. And I'd just like to share a few facts about the pollution because we haven't covered a lot about that tonight. Compared to an average car, a large car, 1 hour of operation of a leaf blower emits 498 times as much hydrocarbons, 49 times as much particulate matter, and 26 times as much carbon monoxide. The following types of materials can be blown into the air at high velocities, subsequently breathed by ourselves and our children: lead, arsenic, mercury, other heavy metals, pesticides, fertilizers, fungicides, rodenticides, herbicides, fungus, dirt, salt, ash, mold, spores, poop, and pollen. In addition, the exhaust from the two-stroke engine contains benzene and other carcinogens. It's estimated that 5 pounds of particulate matter per leaf blower per hour are blown into the air, and they are most certainly not settling only on the property of the homeowner who is using them. They're traveling far and wide, so this is a matter of public health. Children are most vulnerable. because they breathe more air per pound of body weight than adults. They inhale more of any pollutants that are in the air. They are also in the early stages of development of their lungs, their brains, their eyes, etc. And so they are more sensitive. And then there are significant ecosystem impacts. The leaf blowers blow air at about 200 miles per hour. This is like hurricane force winds. They erode healthy topsoil. The noise and pollution force affects animals and birds in our landscape. They distribute disease spores, weed seeds, insect eggs throughout the landscape into neighboring landscapes. They destroy nests and other habitats, including for early pollinators. So while I agree that there are times of year when the volume of leaves may be so significant that a mechanized solution is necessary, the summer is definitely not that time. In fact, it's very well understood that allowing some leaf litter to remain on lawns is beneficial in terms of returning nutrients to the soil and providing habitat for beneficial insects. And the REYARD certification recommends this as a practice, that leaves can be mulched directly into the grass. And this not only significantly reduces the need for blowers, it could be done at the same time as mowing, and it reduces time and money spent on lawn care. It also improves soil health and reduces pressure on municipal leaf removal and storm drain bogs. So that's my 2 cents on leaf blowers. Pesticides, I want to say that I wholeheartedly support exploring a partial ban. Of the 30 most commonly used pesticides, 17 are linked to cancer, 18 are endocrine disruptors, 19 are reproductive toxicants, 11 are linked to birth defects, 14 are neurotoxic, 22 cause kidney liver effects, and 25 are irritants. And there's vast data suggesting the runoff into waterways. In a town like ours with such a large population of children and pregnant women, where we feed into a watershed, this is a serious risk. And the amount of use that happens is completely unnecessary. There are alternatives, as has been discussed. And there are models for ordinances that we can look at. There's also a great organization called the Pesticide Action Network, which works with municipalities to help develop ordinances and help them develop things that can be enforced. And lastly, I wanted to say that I live on Gulf Island, and I have engaged with the golf course directly about the pesticides that they use and expressed concern in which is now my district, luckily. But before I was the district leader, I also reached out to my neighborhood to find out what their concerns were about the golf course, and I took those concerns to the golf course. And I will be happy to share that information with you at any time and continue to work on that issue in collaboration with you. So thank you. Sorry to take so much of your time.
Nope, no
You
problem.
didn't, you didn't. It's
Who
important.
else would like to
It's
speak?
really important.
Good evening. I'm Claire Payton at 480 Summit Avenue in Maplewood. Thank you so much for bringing these issues to the Township Committee's attention. We really appreciate Mr. Lembrick and Ms. Adams for doing that and being advocates for these issues. I wanted to stand here today to represent the Green Team, so the Maplewood Green Team. We do, as you have said, believe in a stricter enforcement of the leaf blower ordinance. And we do, of course, know that it will ease noise as a pollutant, which it really is. It does affect the quality of life for humans and wildlife. And we'd also like to take it one step further and address the particulates that are so detrimental to our health and the health of our children. And we do, in fact, support the statement and the data points made by Amy O'Meara, and wanted to say that. We really do ask for further measures on the ordinance. We did like the idea of there being a subcommittee, and I would like to say, as a member of the Green Team and a member of the Environmental Advisory Committee, I know that representatives from those committees would like to be part of that subcommittee so that there's representation from the entire community in that sort of discussion. And we certainly want to work for collaborative solutions that work for everybody concerned. Yes, we do have a sustainable gardening program called REYARD, and it was mentioned earlier this evening. And in fact, one of the things that we really want to do in tandem with these types of ordinances is educate the community on how to do things differently. And in fact, they're not necessarily harder. They can often be cheaper and can be more impactful in saving our community and saving the nature around us. So we want to do that in tandem, and we want to work with the township to get that kind of word out and to get more people involved, like Ms. O'Meara, who's doing the REYARD program. I'm doing the REYARD program, and so is Carrie and Sheila and others here. So that's what we wanted to support for the leaf blower ordinance. For the pesticide ban, we definitely are excited and heartened to hear that we can discuss at least partial ban on pesticide use in this community. The Maplewood Green Team definitely supports pursuing this and finding some solutions that will, honor our community. We definitely do recognize that the devil's in the details, and we do have to find solutions surrounding the usage, the sale, the distribution, and the transportation of these pesticides. And that will be a complicated situation that involves both residents and commercial landscapers and their guidelines and how that would work out. There was some discussion tonight about compliance, and of course, we would want to look at the leaf blower ordinance and see whether there's a complementary situation in the pesticide arena that would address the commercial landscapers. We heard the discussion about enforcement and compliance, which historically is always an issue with sustainability because it's never up to any one person to solve it, and it's never a neat and easy solution. It's more of a complex web of solutions involving a lot of people. So we would just encourage you to embrace that it won't be perfect in that regard, but that it will be good enough and it will be a step in the right direction, and we can build from there. So in relation to the golf course, we would say that we probably don't want to encourage an exemption for certain groups, because one of the things we do think about a lot is the downstream ramifications, the watershed issue, which is really a large and sort of ominous issue and a part of our future. The water issues are coming down the pike, and we as a township could actually be a leader in this arena and demonstrate solutions to the rest of the state and the nation on how we can find ways out of this and keep our water clear, keep our families healthy and safe, and our community the stellar community that can be. So I think those were just the endorsements and support that we wanted to provide you tonight. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sheila Baker Gujral. I live at 38 Kendall Avenue, and I am co-chair along with Claire Payton of the Green Team, and I'm a member of the Environmental Advisory Committee and the Maplewood Sustainability Committee. I'd like to thank Mr. Lembridge and Deputy Mayor Adams for taking the lead on this. We're very excited at the Environmental Advisory Committee and Green Team. I would like to echo the sentiments of Amy O'Meara and Claire Payton and the ones that Carrie Gordon made earlier on in the evening. So I don't have much more to add. Just one point I wanted to bring up was today I did receive that township blast, the e-blast with the updated listing of registered commercial lawn maintenance businesses. And I heard out in the hallway that the township is negotiating with a new landscaping company. Someone mentioned a name, Pat Scanlon Landscaping. I don't know if if that's correct or not, but I did not see that on the list. And so I would just want to request that whichever landscaper is chosen would be on that list. That's the only additional point I have. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the second public comment period. And we're now in reports from departments. We've received the February 2016 Construction Code Official Report. Administrative reports, Mr. Manning.
Have 3 or 4 items. One is that Mr. Robert Mittermeier, our building construction official, is going to receive the Building Construction Official Award of the Year. Or did I say that right? But he's going to be honored when his peers get together down in Atlantic City for their convention coming up.
It's a 2016 Building Inspector of the Year.
Building Inspector of the Year. Okay. The Maple Leaflet, as we've all said, is out. So please look for your copy and read it. There's a lot of information about what's going on in town in this particular edition. Reporting that the new assistant engineer is going to be starting on Monday, April the 11th. And we have a program supervisor who started on the 4th of April in the Recreation and Cultural Affairs Department. That's my report, unless there are questions.
Any questions for Mr.
Do we have a name for these 2 new employees?
Yes, we do. The program supervisor is Ronnie Quaccarini. Yep, but yes, yes, that was good. It's the other one that I'm going to have trouble with. Anthony Garato.
Anthony Garotto.
Yes.
That
Okay.
sounded like it flowed a little better.
And then, yes, so, okay.
Very melodic.
Mr. Desiderio.
I have one item, Mayor. As the governing body is aware, the township has been engaged in a litigation with regard to trying to determine a fair and equitable housing share under the Affordable Housing Ordinance in light of the New Jersey Supreme Court. To that extent, we have engaged counsel, and counsel has engaged an expert. There are 238 or 83 municipalities. I sent it in a municipality. We're in a coalition, and they have been pooling funds to pay. The township had previously paid $2,000. We have a request from council for an additional $2,000. I don't think it's really optional. Quite frankly, I think it's something the township needs to stay involved in and continue to monitor. So I would ask that you pass a motion authorizing an additional $2,000 be sent to the firm of Jeffrey Serenian for purposes of meeting expenses related to that litigation.
You get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Let's call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, that's all I have, Mayor.
Any questions for Mr. Desiderio? Ms. Fritzen?
No report, Mayor.
Questions?
Any questions?
Reports from elected officials. Mr. Brownlee?
Just that, actually, did check on the website, and in fact, yes, I do see that it is there on the main page of the website. It says updated list of registered commercial lawn maintenance businesses. There actually are 29, if I counted correctly, listed right now. And I'm happy to report that the one I use is on the list. So. This one, it is on the list, yes. Not going to say their names.
I don't
because I'm
have one,
advertising,
so.
Okay.
But yes,
Save
it's on the
that
main
one.
page. It's on the right-hand side, updated list of registered commercial lawn maintenance businesses. So you can check the list there. And as it says at the bottom of it, you can check and see if your landscaper is on the list. And if they're not, let them know that they should. Thank you.
Ms. Adams?
No report, Mayor.
Mr. Lembrick?
My only report is that my office hour for this month, I'm moving it to this Thursday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. And that will be at the main branch of the Maplewood Public Library here on Baker Street. It would usually be tomorrow night, but I'll be attending the event, the community celebration for Ms. Muhammad at the Woodlands. So anyone who'd like to come by my office hour, 7 to 8 p.m. on Thursday, and if that doesn't work for you, just email me or call me, and we'll arrange a time to meet, or you can always join me on the train.
I have 5 items. The first is I have office hours next Tuesday, which is the 12th, from 7 to 8 p.m. here at Town Hall. I want to announce that we have been approved for funding for the municipal aid program under the New Jersey Department of Transportation for $245,000 for Section 3 paving of Parker Avenue. Here's the original in case you want it. This past Saturday, I attended a Meet the Mayors event, which was sponsored by the, 6 or 7 chambers of commerce in West Essex and the League of Women Voters. And it turned out that we had Senate Senate President Sweeney, an assemblyman on the Republican side, I can't remember his name, Commissioner Richmond from the Department of Community Affairs, and representative from the League of Municipalities. And there was a number of issues that were discussed. I'll just talk about 3. The Transportation Trust Fund. The Senate President said that he and Minority Leader Senator Kane, are discussing a plan to raise the gas tax. And they are trying to figure out a plan that would come out on a bipartisan basis. Senate President Sweeney says that the Democrats are not going to support something and then have Christie slam them for it. So that's what they want to do. On COA, they started debating whether they should reinstitute regional
RACs?
county agreements. So these would be, you'd be able to shift around your responsibility. I think Sweeney is not necessarily in favor. Regional contribution agreements, Sweeney is not in favor of this, but there was some possibility. The League of Municipalities seems to be interested in this. We've taken a position in the past against RCAs, thinking that every municipality should accept its responsibility.
Selling them off?
Yes. I did tell Commissioner Richmond that I thought that it was unfair that he was letting municipalities hang in the wind on these lawsuits over affordable housing. He said that, I said, you got to give us some help. We're out there on our own. So I don't think anything's going to happen. And then I raised the.
But it was good that you brought it up.
Yeah, well, I raised the issue of the liquor license.
Did you feel better?
I felt real better. I felt real better. I raised the issue of the liquor license, asking if either Sweeney, if Sweeney thought that there would be changes, and neither he nor his Republican colleague in the Assembly thought that this would move forward.
Really?
They're very concerned about the impact on the existing licensees, and that if they were to change it, you would devalue these. Essentially, they become stranded assets. And
I thought that the work that ICSC and others were doing on that had recommendations in there on how to deal with that.
There was talk about a lot of different funding mechanisms to keep these folks whole, but
I go to the conference each year at the league where they talk about this issue, and it comes up every year.
Oh, I know.
They say the same thing, and even as recently as this past November, it didn't appear as though that they had anything that was.
What about at least?
Berticelli's in his district. He's the guy pushing it down there in that.
What about dormant licenses being able to be sold across municipal lines?
Yeah, they didn't talk about that. I mean, that's a possibility. I think one thing is the league is continuing to work on this, and it's something I've spoken to Mayor Jackson in Montclair about because we have similar interests. And so I think what we'll do is reach out to Mike at the league and see if we can get a better sense of some of those other options.
Yeah, because at least, you'd
Right.
actually be making money for people who have dormant licenses and can't use them.
Right.
There's a lot in Newark, I think. Like 50 or 70 or something.
Yeah, it was, almost 100.
It's a question of, who's going to get those dollars, and it's a tough one. And if you look at this, what they were saying is that some of these liquor licenses are worth $1 million.
Yeah.
So
it's
an
a hard
it's an
problem.
investment. They were looking at it as a retirement
Right,
asset,
exactly.
essentially.
Exactly.
And
It's a
to
hard
now come
problem.
in and sort of, they bought it under that set of rules,
Yeah. Yeah.
changing rules underneath me. That's the continual argument that's made.
Yep.
So.
But I want to let you know that May 1st is going to be the Holocaust Memorial Service. It will be at Oheb Shalom congregation in South Orange. And it starts at 4 p.m. There'll be a march at 3 p.m. And you'll get more information as we go forward. And lastly, Mr. Brownlee and I and Mr. Manning and Chief Semino attended a meeting with South Orange and the Board of Ed. This is a continuation of meetings we've had before that really grew out of concerns around school safety and after-school funding. In any event, the board is proposing a May 16th community forum on school safety. And this is going to be in the evening at 7 p.m. And one thing that might come out of this is the reinstitution of a school resource officer at the high school. And we're not sure that that's actually going to happen. We want to talk with the community and get a sense as to whether or not they think it's a good idea and that they fully understand what we're proposing. So that would be what the idea, that would be part of the presentation on May 16th. But there is a funding implication here, because if we were to do that, we would want to have that officer in place starting in September. And that officer would be a Maplewood police officer, would be a seasoned officer, not a new officer. But as we move a seasoned officer over to the high school, we want to backfill that position so that we have somebody on the street. The funding of the school resource officer would be a three-part funding: Maplewood, South Orange, and the school board. So we would like to suggest to the Township Committee tonight that we authorize Mr. Manning to put $25,000, $35,000 in the budget for this year, so that if in fact we do want to move forward with the school resource officer, that we would have the funding to do that. Is that right?
Yes.
So I wanted to raise that with the two of you.
And
Want to expand on the role of the school resource officer and when it went away, and why we want it back?
It had been there for a number of years, and it went away in 2009 when we did a 10% layoff of all town employees, and we lost 6 police officers. And
but actually, even preceding that, it was actually federally funded.
Correct.
And then actually for a number of years, even after the federal funding was removed, we were actually still funding it. And in 2009, that's when we stopped funding it. So the actual expiration of the federal program predated that. We continued it on our own for a number of years. And then when we had the reduction in force in 2009, it was?
Yes.
Then that's when it, quote unquote, went away.
And the school resource officer is someone who's on site, works with the students, works with the faculty, runs classes, is there to work one-on-one with individuals, works with groups, tries to gain intelligence, is someone who there's a relationship between the students and the faculty and that officer in case there's a problem, or in case somebody needs some guidance, that person is there.
Yeah, it's the relationship word, I was waiting for you to say that word, is really a key component of what we're talking about here. It isn't strictly we need a cop in the school, to enforce the law, that type of thing. It's about a relationship building exercise. This is what's going to be discussed in the community forum as well. Right. This is what's going to be kind of communicated in terms of what the role, a clarity of role of what this person is going to do in the schools. And so I don't want to usurp that discussion, but just framing what we're talking about and why we're asking for the funding. This is what we're talking about.
Is there something that happened or is this just an ongoing need, perceived need, or is there, it's
a perceived need. The perceived need. And I think what precipitated these conversations was the incident that occurred at the middle school when the kid brought the gun to the school. But there has been over the years since 2009 a conversation about whether or not we had the resources to put someone back in the high school. We do not. I mean, we're talking a significant amount of money. The difference here is that we have a commitment from South Orange and school board to co-fund it with us going forward. So it's a little less of a financial burden. The chief of police thinks this is a very important position for them. It helps in a lot of different ways, and it helps build that relationship between the young people and the officers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's apropos to say names, but without naming names, there's a particular person who actually was fulfilling that role for a number of years, who was held in very high esteem in terms of his relationship building with the students, and I think we're looking to sort of reinstate and re-emulate that particular person wouldn't be the person, but again, it would be an experienced officer who would essentially be fulfilling that type of role. And when this was ended, it was seen as a loss. So we're looking to sort of go back to that. Now, again, as Mayor DeLuca said, there have been incidents of late which have sort of precipitated the discussion, but this is not purely a cause-effect reaction to that particular incident. It rather sparked the conversation, and then we started talking about revisiting it. And again, there's been a whole host of, national issues. I mean, this is happening in a broader context of things. So I think, have I summed up? Again, we were there last night, and we had a fairly extensive discussion about this.
My question would be, and I guess this is for Mr. Manning, with this addition, and I don't know if there have been any other additions since we last looked at the budget, are we still looking at April 19 at the budget hearing at introducing a budget of with an increase of 1.96%? Is that number still the?
Yes.
Okay.
And that would be not introducing, but actually adopting.
Yes, okay, yes. We introduced the budget at 1.96%, so we would be adopting the budget at 1.96%.
Right. We are going over, Mr. Uribe, myself, are going over the budget to see if we can, keep our revenues. We may have to import a little more revenue to help us with this, but we're trying not to. So we're working on that.
Okay, thank you.
So we would like to, I guess, get a motion to instruct Mr. Manning to insert this in the budget for 2016 as a shared service. This would be a shared service, right, Mr. Manning?
Yes, we'd be the lead agency.
Yeah, and we'd be the lead agency.
I would move that Mr. Manning be authorized to institute talks to enter into a shared agreement with the municipality of South Orange and the Board of Education to implement an SRO part of our budget.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. And remember, this would only happen if there is agreement after the May 16th meeting and the community felt comfortable about the direction. The Board of Ed was accepted, and Superintendent Ramos continued to move forward. So, okay, so ready for a vote?
We have a second, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I second it.
Okay.
Ms.
Call the
Adams?
roll.
Yes.
Brownlee?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you very much. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll meet again April 19th, 7:30 right here. Yes, it happened too late, though. Liz?
Yeah, we was in India.